why it matters. Sunday morning at 6 on AM 560. The Answer. Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will be sunny and very warm with a high of 82. Tonight, expect clear skies with a low of 58. Tomorrow, anticipate very warm weather with plenty of sun, marking a beautiful start to the weekend with a high of 83. Sunday will bring sunshine and more warmth with a high of 82. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Portions of the following show may be pre-recorded.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Well, boom goes the dynamite. Whoop, there it is. How you like me now? FAFO. Whichever immediate visceral reaction you had to the news yesterday. That in spite of the skepticism of many, former FBI Director Jim Comey has been indicted on a charge of lying to Congress, so perjuring himself, lying under oath, and obstruction of justice. Happy day? Question mark. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro, answer line and text line. Or is it tainted, and are you concerned by the fact that it happens against the backdrop of Trump on Truth Social openly posting about, hey, let's move on these guys like Comey already, Schiff, Letitia James. They have not been charged yet. Letitia James and Adam Schiff. Let's move on them. And number one. And number two, of course, he essentially removed the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia and installed someone who was clearly prepared to move forward with charges. Concerns about that. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro, answer line and text line. Jim Comey seems unconcerned. This is a video that he posted to his Substack. Let's get it on.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either. Somebody that I love dearly recently said that fear is the tool of a tyrant.
Taylor Swift.
And she's right. But I'm not afraid, and I hope you're not either. I hope instead you are engaged, you are paying attention, and you will vote like your beloved country depends upon it, which it does. My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial and keep the faith.
We're going to. So no plea bargain for Jim Comey. He's going the distance. Okay. Text from 847. The big story is the FBI acknowledging there was 275 agents and operatives in the Jan 6 crowd when just last year the IG said there were none. That is not the big story. That is a story. The big story is that Jim Comey, the former FBI director, has been indicted. That's the big story. He was the top of the food chain. He was the malign actor at the head of the FBI for all those years when all those things happened. Now I know Christopher Wray came in and as it pertains to January 6th. So it's a different FBI director. But holding an FBI director under accountable under the law, under criminal law, that's a new thing. Clay in Libertyville, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Morning, Dan. I don't know why anybody would be excited. This is 2025 Republicans. Can't even get an Epstein list. Still waiting on that. Still waiting on more of that. Why is this any different? Oh my gosh, they indicted him. Great. I'll bet you $1 million right here, right now, that guy will never see the inside of a jail cell.
Well, boy, the cynicism is deep within some people.
Oh, absolutely. Show me any accountability out of Democrats that Republicans have held them accountable. Show me.
Well, I mean, thanks for the call, Clay. I don't know that he sees the inside of a jail cell. But so now we just move the goalposts. Nobody's ever going to get indicted. Nobody's ever going to be held accountable. Trump administration isn't even going to be able to get this done, cash and bonding. And now he has been indicted, a significant player in the Russian collusion hoax and everything that transpired under his tenure. And sort of emblematic of a politicized FBI that predates Jim Comey and postdates him too. And now he's not. Well, that's no big deal because he's never going to see the inside of a jail cell. Well, it is a bit of a big deal. You're up against statutes of limitations, including here, if, as we suggested yesterday, this relates to his September 30th, 2020 testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee, which it does. So, look, this is not inconsequential. And just as you have to let the process play out when it came to the grand jury returning indictments, so you have to let the process play out in terms of this trial, since that seems to be what Jim Comey wants, and that's what Jim Comey's entitled to, and that's what he's going to get. But on the perjury charge, as I explained yesterday, it's going to be very interesting. I think he's sort of dead to rights. And it's not just because of the contradictory testimony under oath of his buddy and former deputy director, Andy McCabe, on the matter of leaking information. He said he never did, and Andy McCabe said he directed me to. So those two things are mutually exclusive. I mean, there's other evidence to support this. And by the way, the reporting on this was just a month ago. Catherine Herridge noted it after Kash Patel declassified a bunch of documents related to Jim Comey's behavior. And by the way, that's another distinction. We're never going to see the documents. We're never going to get the truth. We're never going to hold anybody accountable. It's all part and parcel. Now nobody's ever going to get indicted. Now nobody's ever going to actually serve prison time. Okay. This is Catherine Herridge last month, the newly declassified records via Kash Patel into media leaks and the role of third parties, Director Comey's 2017 testimony to the Senate Judiciary Committee, about leaks appears problematic. Yeah, it sure does. It sure does appear problematic. And the 2017 testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee, as I explained yesterday, was repeated in his 2020 testimony in this exchange between Ted Cruz and the aforesaid Jim Comey.
On May 3rd, 2017, in this committee, Chairman Grassley asked you point blank, quote, "Have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?" You responded under oath, quote, "Never." He then asked you, quote, "Have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton administration?" You responded again under oath, "No." Now, as you know, Mr. McCabe, who works for you, has publicly and repeatedly stated that he leaked information to the Wall Street Journal and that you were directly aware of it and that you directly authorized it. Now, what Mr. McCabe is saying and what you testified to this committee cannot both be true. One or the other is false. Who's telling the truth?
I can only speak to my testimony. I stand by what the testimony you summarized that I gave in May of 2017.
So your testimony is you've never authorized anyone to leak. And Mr. McCabe, if he says contrary, is not telling the truth. Is that correct?
Again, I'm not going to characterize Andy's testimony, but mine is the same today.
The documents released last month by Kash Patel, memos that indicate that Jim Comey used that Columbia University law professor, Daniel Richman, as a conduit to the New York Times to both polish up Jim Comey's image to do some brand management, as well as to push for a special prosecutor to take down President Trump. Columbia University law professor Daniel Richman admitted to agents in interviews he routinely communicated on behalf of Comey, his longtime friend, with Times reporter Michael Schmidt, whose work was among the newspaper's 2018 Pulitzer Prize-winning stories on Russian election interference. The goal, Richmond told the FBI, was to, quote, correct stories critical of Comey, the FBI, and to shape future press coverage, unquote, outside of the Bureau's official press office. Richmond insisted he did not believe he had confirmed or provided classified intelligence to reporters, but he said he couldn't be 100% on that. The memo state he could only make his leak denial, quote, with a discount. In the FBI memo, it was recounted, I'm quoting, Richmond was pretty sure he did not confirm the classified information. However, Richmond told the interviewing agents he was sure with a discount that he did not tell Schmidt about the classified information. Schmidt is that Times reporter that was just mentioned. Yeah. So there is pretty compelling statements from witnesses and participants that Jim Comey lied right there in that exchange that you heard. He lied repeatedly, and he just kept telling the lie. And one of those lies he told is still actionable under the statute of limitations, and so that's where we're at. Bill, Northwest Side.
Yeah, a big part of accountability is putting him through the process. Hopefully he'll be convicted, but at a minimum, hopefully he'll have to spend millions of dollars in legal fees. So that'll be another deterrent for this happening in the future, putting people like Comey and others through the process.
Right. The process is the punishment, and all the people unfairly put through that process, that punishment connected with the Russian collusion witch hunt. Right. Jonathan Turley had this to say about the indictment. Again, we haven't seen the particulars, particularly on the obstruction of justice charge, because that implies specific action taken.
Well, we really need to see what those underlying allegations are. One of the reasons that we've been focusing on his statement in 2020 about the leak is because that's not a matter of interpretation. Much of what people objected to with Comey over the years is that his answers were very evasive. He tended to say he didn't remember things that you would think he would remember because they were rather momentous, and then he would remember other details, no matter how fine the grain. But this is different. With regard to that leak, either he did leak the information or cause someone to leak it, or he did not. And that's not a matter of interpretation. So if that's the false statement, the question is, what's the underlying information that supported the indictment? And the question here is, if it is the same statement that we've been talking about, could he face his former associate and friend, McCabe, and will he repeat on the stand that I was told to leak this by Comey? So that's one of the things we'll be looking at for that source. The obstruction count is really intriguing. That suggests that there was conduct besides obviously that false statement. And that's what we really need to look at. An obstruction count can go from 5 to 10 years of potential sentencing, but it depends on what the obstruction was.
So there you have it. U.S. District Judge Michael Nachmanoff has been, his number came up in terms of who will preside over this case. He's a 2021 appointee of President Joe Biden, randomly signed the Comey case. So we'll have to watch how that judge behaves in this case as it moves to trial as well. All right, we'll turn our attention to the latest on the on the Dallas ICE shooting, the latest evidence that has been made public about that Dallas ICE shooter. That's at 5:38. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It's 58 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. ICE agents are continuing to crack down on illegal migrants near our town. Fox's Mike Tobin in Cook County.
Border Patrol agents were in the town Cicero with a targeted arrest. The target, Everardo Villalba Vasquez. Court records show he was convicted in 2020 for possession with the intent to distribute more than 1 kilogram of heroin. He got an order for removal and was deported in 2021, but border agents found him this morning back in Chicagoland. Border Patrol agents also did a raid on a Home Depot in the city. They developed intel that guys with criminal backgrounds cars were among the guys lining up and looking for work. When Border Patrol arrived, a group of people took off running in every direction. The agents caught 4 of them. Their status is being determined.
The Chicago City Council has approved $90 million in lawsuits that are tied to a corrupt former CPD sergeant. In total, 176 lawsuits were settled in that deal. News is a service of Lowe's. Lowe's knows how to make your home holiday ready for less. Refresh your space with select style selections. Vinyl flooring for just $1.99 per square foot, while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for more details and qualifying items. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but
Your home is a valuable asset, and you want to take care of your home. From roofs, siding, windows, and doors to furnaces, flooring, landscaping, and much more. Listen to your go-to for all things home. It's Home Answers Radio every Sunday morning at 9. Presented by Lang Home Medical Equipment, Valdecast Windows and Doors, and by JeffBuysYourHouse.com. Get answers from industry experts so you can make informed decisions about your home improvement. Right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Wow. At the time of this being written, both gold and silver are up some 40%. That's 40% in just 1 year. In fact, this past year, gold has broken all-time historic records by hundreds of dollars an ounce. And unlike all other financial instruments used today, that historic record goes back thousands of years. In times like these, prices have never been better on most collector and gold coins. Fox Valley Coins in Naperville is trying to keep up with demand. So they're paying the most ever on not only most gold coins and bars, but also those old coin and paper money collections. They're especially looking for the scarcer dates and higher grade coins. Take advantage of the record high market price and our huge demand now, whether you're buying or selling, or just want to find out their worth. Fox Valley Coins is the place to go. Fox Valley Coins is on Route 59, just 1 light north of I-88 at the Naperville-Warrenville border. Family-owned integrity since 1981.
Wealth Health Radio.
The biggest fears that people have is, do I have enough money to retire?
Retirement doesn't have to be complicated.
To make sure that you're going through retirement with confidence.
Learn principles of income planning.
There's a lot of different facets that you need to take into consideration when you're retiring.
Tune into Wealth Health Radio with Joe Murphy, noon to 1 p.m. Sundays on AM 560, The Answer.
Is cremation an option you're considering for you or your loved one? At Catholic cemeteries, we offer sacred, permanent places of rest where loved ones can be remembered, prayed for, and visited for generations. Too often, cremated remains are brought home, only to end up in closets, basements, or forgotten on shelves. Memorialization is forever. Honor their life. Preserve your legacy. Visit us today at CatholicCemeteryChicago.org to schedule a free consultation or call 708-236-5490.
Are you looking to hire? ZipRecruiter finds the best candidate for your job fast. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will be sunny and very warm with a high of 82. Tonight will be clear with a low of 58. Tomorrow will be very warm with plenty of sun. A beautiful start to the weekend, reaching a high of 83. Sunday will bring sunshine and very warm conditions with a high of 82. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, updating the evidence gathered and made public in the ICE shooting in Dallas, where one detainee was murdered, 2 others critically injured, no law enforcement injured. But of course, one of the things we find out from the shooter, who clearly indicated his political opposition to ICE and to enforcement of immigration laws. One of the things that one of the things we learned is that is virtually beyond dispute with the evidence culled together so far. The other thing is that he fired into that ICE facility indiscriminately. The great concern for the person who uses political violence as the means to political ends, the great concern he was targeting ICE officers, and he killed and injured detainees because it was about him. It's not about them. And isn't that a recurring motif? It's a bit redundant. Isn't that a motif with violence from leftists? They're so pained by the experience of others. They're so committed to whatever cause that they don't really care who gets hurt because it's about their own sense of virtue. It's not about actually helping anybody. The use of other people as mascots. The Kash Patel posting on X yesterday. The assassin downloaded a document called Dallas County Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management containing a list of DHS facilities. He conducted multiple searches of ballistics and the, quote, Charlie Kirk shot video, unquote, between September 23rd and 24th. Between August 19th and August 24th, he searched apps that track the presence of ICE agents. That's a whole nother topic. These apps like ICE Block that have more than 100,000 downloads that are used to track ICE agents' movements, and you had law enforcement comment on that yesterday, and essentially set ICE agents up to be targets to anybody who believes that violence is the means to political ends, and this is their cause celeb. Now you know where ICE agents are, and you can try and ambush them. One of the handwritten notes recovered, quote, hopefully this will give ICE agents real terror to think, is there a sniper with AP rounds on that roof, unquote. Further accumulated evidence to this point indicates a high degree of pre-attack planning. Those were the words of FBI Director Kash Patel. Here was the summary from Nancy Larson, the U.S. Attorney in Dallas.
FBI agents executed a search warrant at the sniper's residence yesterday, and there found a collection of notes. First, I want to point out that one of these notes or papers, the sniper explicitly states, yes, it was just me. That statement appears to be correct at this point in the investigation. Notably, these loose notes included a game plan of the attack and target areas at the facility. He called the ICE employees people showing up to collect a dirty paycheck. He wrote that he intended to maximize lethality against ICE personnel and to maximize property damage at the facility. He hoped to minimize any collateral damage or injury to the detainees and any other innocent people. It seems that he did not intend to kill the detainees or harm them. It's clear from these notes that he was targeting ICE agents and ICE personnel. The tragic irony for his evil plot here is that it was a detainee who was killed and two other detainees that were injured when he fired into the Sally Port. He also hoped his actions would give ICE agents real terror of being gunned down, and he did this to induce constant stress in their lives. He hoped his actions would terrorize ICE employees and interfere with their work, which he called human trafficking. And this, what he did, is the very definition of terrorism. Again, his notes reveal, yes, it was just me and my brain. And he said, good luck with the digital footprint. And of course, we take this to mean that he deleted evidence from his devices. His words were definitively anti-ICE.
312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. Marcos Charles, we had on the show earlier this week. He is Assistant Director for Enforcement and Recovery Options. He was more pointed about the context in which this shooting and previous attacks on ICE officers have occurred. And he also got into those tracking apps that I mentioned.
Violent rhetoric has led to over 1,000% increase in assaults on ICE officers, and it has to stop. In contrast to those who would demonize our men and women, yesterday our brave officers ran back into danger, along with ATF, our partners, to save the detainees while shots were still being fired. Those ICE officers just showed the world who they really are. Law enforcement officers who want the best for our country. That's ICE. Integrity, courage, excellence. They were willing to put their lives on the line to pull detainees out of the transport van to get them to safety. They are heroes, and I hope the media has the integrity to shine a light on this story. Enough is enough with the harmful lies and violent rhetoric. It has to stop.
Yeah, that seems to be an important point, don't you think? These Nazis that intend to inflict terror and cruelty on other people just for sport. This is how they're characterized, including by Pritzker. Can't say it enough. We'll have to bring that clip back to make sure that people hear it over and over again. They put themselves in harm's way to protect detainees who were fired upon because they didn't know what was happening. They're being fired upon. The detainees are being fired on. Well, it's indiscriminate shooting. So rather than just taking cover for themselves, they also wanted to make sure that the people in their custody were safe. Doesn't quite fit the caricature of the left, does it? And on those ICE tracking apps?
The shooter used the ICE tracking apps. Anyone who creates or distributes these apps that is designed to spot, track, and locate ICE officers are well aware of the dangers that they are exposing to law enforcement. It's a casting call to invite bad actors to attack law enforcement officers. It's no different than giving a hitman the location of their intended target, and this is exactly what we saw happen in Dallas yesterday. The media has been amplifying these apps even as we warned them it would only lead to more attacks on law enforcement. We truly wish we didn't have to say, "I told you so," but here we are.
312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. Tom Homan came down hard on this, too, talking about the rhetoric from the left, the demonization of ICE officers. And those tracking apps, too. This has, I guess, been a little bit of an underreported aspect of the larger story with respect to immigration enforcement. The need to prevent yourself from being identified so that the left can dox you and potentially put the families of law enforcement officers in jeopardy. But then actually in the commission of your duties, being tracked by people who, some among them, might decide that committing an act of violence against ICE or attempting to is the way to make their political views known. Pretty serious business.
I've been doing this here since 1984. I got over 4 decades doing this job, and I've seen this movie before. I've never seen it this bad, but the rhetoric is what's causing all this hate, and it convinces that small percentage on the left that hate ICE to take action. When they have a congressman or someone that ran for vice president of the United States comparing ICE to Nazis, that gives some of these nuts and emboldens them to take action. And there's been 3 shootings in Texas alone. There was a gunman that showed up at Gorbachev facility and started shooting at them. He picked the wrong facility. He picked the SWAT facility, and those officers ended up taking his life. Then there's this shooting just south of Dallas where they attacked an ICE facility and 1 officer was shot in the neck. Then this latest incident. This is based on hate that's being fueled by the media and members of Congress and governors and mayors. You played it on your show. We got to stop. ICE agents are enforcing the law Congress enacted. If you don't like what ICE is doing, then go tell Congress, because they wrote the laws that ICE is obligated and took an oath to enforce. They're making this country safe again. Every day, they take a public safety threat or a national security threat off the street, it makes that community safer. All these politicians and mayors and governors should be calling President Trump and thanking them for making their community safe again.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we need to do here and get distribution on, get some help from some sort of crowdsourced reporting and information dissemination. Those 550 arrests that ICE has made just in Chicago as connected with Operation Midway Blitz. Let's see a rundown of those individuals arrested and what they're charged with and what their criminal backgrounds are. As we heard from Marcos Charles, 50 to 60% were on the ICE arrest list, and the others were arrested in conjunction with ICE looking for those 50 to 60% of people who pose public safety threats on the list, on the public safety threat list. And then you put them in the neighborhoods and they run into other people who are in this country illegally, and they're going too. That's how it works. And that's how Tom Homan said it would work from the get-go. But let's remind people over and over again about who is being taken off the streets of Chicago and everywhere else in this country. And then ask the question, do you want to take the position of J.B. Pritzker? Are those your people too? Just like they're his people? You really think that's what ICE is doing when you hear the story about what they did in Dallas to protect detainees at their own peril, knowing who they've taken off the streets? And every day we tell you stories about these individuals that pose public safety threats that ICE has apprehended. Repeat violent offenders, multiple-time felons, and you think allowing them to mill about the country freely makes your community or any community safer? Who believes that? Nobody with any sense. But here's what J.B. Pritzker believes. Just a refresher. Don't forget.
Second, unidentifiable agents in unmarked vehicles with masks are planning to raid Latino communities and say they're targeting violent criminals. As we saw in Los Angeles, a very, very small percentage of the individuals they will target will be violent criminals. Instead, you're likely to see videos of them hauling away mothers and fathers, traveling to work or picking up their kids from school. Sometimes they will detain, handcuff, and haul away children. They are law-abiding individuals who pay taxes and contribute to the communities, who feel safe going to work and attending mandatory immigration check-ins. In other words, they're following the law. We have reason to believe that Stephen Miller chose the month of September to come to Chicago because of celebrations around Mexican Independence Day that happen here every year. It breaks my heart to report that we have been told ICE will try and disrupt community picnics and peaceful parades. Let's be clear, the terror and cruelty is the point, not the safety of anyone living here.
You come for his people, you come through him. Message to those terrorists at ICE. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. I want to pick up something that friend Eli Steele posted to his Substack, Eli Steele, the documentarian. Because he essentially reiterates the argument that I've made about this, about political violence coming from the left, I mean. One unique aspect of leftist-driven violence often goes unnoticed. The recent bloodshed, vandalism, and intimidation that we've seen aren't random, but the predictable fallout of a worldview that reduces human complexity to fixed ideological identities. The left's obsession with immutable traits, race, gender, sex, creates a victimhood hierarchy where dissent feels like an existential threat. When challenged, responses spiral into denial, defensiveness, or even violence from those unable to defend their dogma. This isn't mere political disagreement, but the grim consequence of a radical ideology that, for some, seeks America's destruction by dismantling its foundational values of reason and individuality for rigid orthodoxy. Beyond violence, this ideology, he's talking about identitarianism, if that's unclear. Beyond violence, this ideology breeds intimidation, silencing dissent with threats of job loss or social ostracism. Rooted in identity determinism, this intellectual dead end leaves no room for nuance or growth, increasing the potential for violence among those trapped in its logic, a logic now taught to young minds in most subjects and through ethnic studies in K-12 schools. If we cannot force the left to retreat from its fixation on identity politics through the ballot box, government actions, and all legal means, this ideology will only sow ever-increasing division and violence, eroding America's core. To break the cycle, we must reject the notion that immutable traits dictate moral worth and recommit to reason and individuality. Until this radical faction abandons its dogma and its aim to dismantle America, it will fuel conflict. A stark reminder of what happens when orthodoxy drowns out dialogue. Yeah, that's well said. That's precisely the dynamic at play. Precisely. It is this sickness of identitarianism. And it consumes some more than others. Nate in Schiller Park.
Good morning, Dan. I just wanted to comment. I can't stand J.B. Pritzker every time he says that. However, the one thing that I think is important that nobody ever brings up is when he says they're paying taxes. Well, they are paying taxes, but they're also committing identity fraud at the same time. And that's another crime that is never mentioned. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Thanks for the call, Nate. Yeah, they're also enjoying all sorts of taxpayer-funded benefits in Illinois. For example, healthcare to the tune of about $1.5 billion in aggregate. Neil LaGrange.
I thought Pritzker put $2.5 billion in the budget for illegal aliens.
Well, I mean, the spend over the last 2 years was guesstimated at 1.5, but these are round numbers. But anyway, go ahead.
Couple other things. Listening to Pritzker, you swear that ICE is only going after Boy Scouts and priests.
Yeah.
And the other question I have for you, Dan, and this is a lawyer hat, is that, the previous, they were talking about all these people that downloaded these ICE tracking apps. Is there a way for them to figure out who downloaded those and go have a talk with those people, or is that a Fourth Amendment issue? Can they do that?
Well, I think, thanks for the call, Neil. I don't know that those apps are necessarily illegal, and so downloading them is thus not illegal and wouldn't provide probable cause for some sort of interrogation of people. But I think where this is at right now is trying to get the platforms, Google Play, Apple Store, to remove that app. In the interest of propriety, there's no constitutional right to have your app in the Apple Store or on Google Play. I believe that's where it's at. But I mean, just know what what that app provides. So this is a bit of a freedom versus order argument, but you can understand from a law enforcement officer's perspective, given this radical fringe that Eli Steele is writing about, why it's very concerning, in addition to what you've actually seen, the real world, what they've done. Tim in Woodstock.
Hi, good morning, Dan. I just think, I wish that Republican politicians, as true as what they were saying were, like J.D. Vance and Ted Cruz laid out the case, to stop talking to the left as if they are unaware of what their rhetoric might lead to. After Ted talked, I think it was Ted Cruz, he said, see, this is what it leads to. Can you see that this is what it leads to? And it's really time to start, I think, calling them out and saying that they know exactly what their words might lead to. And in fact, these people, like these recent shooters, John and Robinson, answered a call. In my mind, they answered the call of politicians like Pritzker and Crockett. And you're not dealing with you're not dealing with honest people, and they know exactly what they're up to. And just saying, this has to stop. Well, it's not going to stop by trying to shame them. They're not capable of being shamed into that.
Thanks for the call, Tim. Just on this front, you see this everywhere, as I've been making the point all week. Every issue that is part of the orthodoxy, you see violence attended. Whether it's open borders, quote unquote, free Palestine, trans-Tifa, pro-life, every part of their orthodoxy, every plank in the platform, you see leftists acting with violence to achieve political ends. And we'll pick that up on the other side. It's now 6 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
He's expected to surrender today. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. Former FBI Director James Comey, who's defiant after being indicted, posting on Instagram he's innocent.
We will not live on our knees. And you shouldn't either.
The president, in a Truth Social post, calls Comey one of the worst human beings in the country. The charges relate to Comey's testimony to Congress about the FBI investigation into the 2016 election and allegations of Trump campaign Russia collusion the president calls a hoax.
Comey is charged with obstruction and making false statements. President Trump last week pushed for the Justice Department to move forward with an indictment against Comey, demanding in a Truth Social post that justice be served now. Comey was FBI director when the Russia investigation was opened. He was fired just a few months into the first Trump term.
That's Fox's Gernal Scott. We're learning more about the gunman who shot at an immigration enforcement facility in Dallas, Texas this week, that he tracked ICE agents using an app. And Fox's Madeline Rivera reports.
Federal officials say the shooter spent months planning this attack that they say was meant to kill ICE agents. They say they found a collection of notes in 29-year-old Joshua John's house. The notes included a game plan of the attack, and he called ICE agents people showing up to collect a dirty paycheck.
No agents were shot, but 3 ICE detainees were. 1 died. John shot and killed himself. President Trump signed an order facilitating the sale of TikTok to American investors away from Chinese control to prevent a ban of the social media app mandated by law. Vice President Vance says
there was some resistance on the Chinese side, but the fundamental thing that we wanted to accomplish is that we wanted to keep TikTok operating, but we also wanted to make sure that we protected Americans' data privacy as required by law.
President Trump's going to impose more tariffs next month, this time targeting some imported pharmaceuticals, trucks, furniture, household products. And later this morning, he goes to the Ryder Cup in New York, which starts in about 10 minutes with the first matches, American golfers versus Europeans. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It is 58 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. Mostly sunny, 81 today. A Chicago man is charged with forging the signatures of 2 district court judges. Federal prosecutors allege 67-year-old Walter Borowski forged signatures of judges Rebecca Pallmeyer and Virginia Kendall on multiple documents, including one stating that his filing restrictions were rescinded. Each of the 11 counts is punishable by a maximum sentence of 5 years in federal prison. DuPage County officials have announced that a resident has died from West Nile virus. That death is the first for the county and the second in Illinois this year. The death comes after a Cook County resident in their 60s died of the virus earlier this month. West Nile virus is spread to humans through bites from mosquitoes that have contracted it by feeding on infected birds. Now, most cases of West Nile virus in humans are either mild or show no symptoms of all, meaning that many of those cases go unreported because the CDC says most of those folks do not ever develop symptoms. According to a new study, Illinois is the most dangerous state in the nation for nursing home safety violations. Total fines reached more than $78 million for an average of $115,000 per facility. The Illinois Department of Revenue is encouraging taxpayers to take advantage of the 2025 Illinois Tax Amnesty Program, which allows payments of eligible past due tax liabilities and have those penalties and interest forgiven on taxes that are paid in full during that amnesty period. Eligible liabilities are taxes due from periods ending after June 30th, 2018 and prior to July 1st of 2024. Taxpayers must make full payments October 1st through November 17th. News is a service of almostfreeteeth.com. Overpaying for dental implants is over. If you have a Blue Cross, Blue Shield, PPO, or FEP, you could save 90% off on average to get your smile back. Learn more and check if you qualify at almostfreeteeth.com. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560, The Answer.
Town Hall News, where conservative voices cut through the noise from breaking headlines to fearless opinion. We report what matters without apology. Written by people who actually believe what you believe. Town Hall tells the stories the corporate press buries, from President Trump to Capitol Hill, from pivotal elections to your everyday lives. Join the movement at townhall.com. Real stories, real reporters, real conservative media.
Gain insight into building strong marriages and raising godly children with Focus on the Family with Jim Daly each weekday at 11:30 a.m. on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
Can you read this email for me?
Of course. Jeez, I wish they could do something for your eyesight.
Ugh, me too. But you heard what they said. There's nothing we can do.
When vision loss can't be corrected with glasses or surgery, and hope seems lost, turn to Spectrios Institute for Low Vision. Spectrios doctors specialize in the treatment of vision loss related to eye diseases, such as macular degeneration, glaucoma, and diabetic retinopathy. There is hope, supported by science with personalized rehabilitation plans, occupational therapies, and access technology at Spectrios. Talk to a patient service manager. They'll walk you through the program. Spectrios takes BCBS and Medicare insurance. They also have grants for qualifying patients and offer a Seeing is Believing children's outreach program. Go to spectrios.org, located in Wheaton in a building that says it all, the House of Hope. That's SPECTRIOS.org. Spectrios Institute, the head, heart, and eyes approach to better vision. Remember to keep Spectrios Institute a 501c in your estate or legacy planning.
Allie Dwyer and her 3 sons lost their hero, Stephen. Serving our country in the United States Army was Stephen's calling, and flying helicopters was his passion. Stephen was killed in a Black Hawk helicopter crash over the Mediterranean Sea. Thanks to friends like you, Tunnel to Towers provided his family with a mortgage-free home, giving them security and hope in their darkest hours. Help more families like the Dwyers. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. That's T2T.org.
Life insurance. Why are you putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think you don't need it? There's lots of excuses for putting off life insurance. But if you weren't there, who would pay the mortgage and other bills? With Ethos, you could be covered in 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Ethos, fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at ethos.com/term. That's ethos.com/term.
Sean Thompson here, and I'm with the team from Access One, the founder and chairman, Mark Joswiak, and vice president, Enzo Scafidi. We're talking about how Access One can help business with their IT challenges. If you had to explain IT services and what you guys do to a 10-year-old, what's the best way to do it?
I would say think about whenever you have a problem with anything technology related, an IT services company is who you would call to fix it. And that's basically it. So you have a problem. I like to say anything with a power cord. If it has a power cord and you're having trouble, call Access One.
I would say just even anything connecting to the internet.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
What's the biggest myth or misunderstanding business owners have when it comes to this arena? What do they take for granted? What do they miss?
They think they're protected when really they're not sometimes. So that's what they call us.
If your business needs help with managed IT, cybersecurity, or voice technologies, you need to contact the team at Access One. Learn more at access1inc.com. That's access1inc.com. Or call them directly today at 1-800-804-8333.
Sign up for the AM 560 Answer Advantage to get early alerts on event ticket sales, special discounts, and contest opportunities. Sign up today at 560theanswer.com/advantage.
From the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, let's get you into town. All right, Kennedy outbound, if you got some early morning flights for O'Hare, right there between I-90 and Manheim. About a 5-minute backup, so traffic slowly moving there. Now inbound on the Kennedy, starting to back up a little bit if you're between Montrose and California Avenue, about a 5-minute delay. The Edens coming into town from Lake Cook to Montrose, no delays there, about a 15-minute cruise in. Outbound Edens from Montrose Lake Cook, about a 13-minute drive. On the Ikes, no major issues or delays if you're rolling on the Ike from Wolf to the old post office, about a 15-minute ride. 26 6-minute drive if you're Stevenson inbound from 355 to DuSable Lakeshore Drive. On the Bishop Ford, traffic slowly starting to build if you're on the inbound lanes between 111th and the Dan Ryan Expressway. And the Tri-State Tollway, stop and go if you're between Reagan Memorial and Eisenhower going north. Traffic, a service of Team Hochberg. They've helped thousands of AM 560 listeners with the best rates and service. Let Team Hochberg help you by visiting 56david.com or call 855-563-2843. That's 56david.com. Lower.com, equal housing lender, NMLS 1124061. I'm John Cruz. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now a check of your Friday forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be sunny and very warm with a high of 82. Tonight, expect clear skies with a low of 58. Tomorrow, anticipate very warm weather with plenty of sun, marking a beautiful start to the weekend with a high of 83. Sunday will bring sunshine and more warmth with a high of 82. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Another reason why Dan Proft is single.
There it is. Yeah. Let that wash over you before we get to the Evangelical Lutheran Church. The Evangelical Lutheran Church in America has a new listing of Bible verses that we now recognize as harmful, quote unquote, that they now recognize as harmful. I mean, just in the backdrop of all this violence from the left and this the sense that there is a great awakening happening, at least within certain quarters of the American populace, as was on display on Sunday at Charlie Kirk's funeral service, very encouraging. But then you have to scratch the surface and look at what is actually happening within these faith communities. You know, I'll start with my own. The Archdiocese honoring Dick Durbin with a Lifetime Achievement Award, which you talked about this week. That's not particularly uplifting or inspiring or encouraging. The homilies of priests like that Father Baspus over at St. Mary's Church in Riverside, seeming to, without naming him, cast Charlie Kirk as some sort of false prophet. So what's happening within these actual faith communities, within the institutions that gird these faith communities. And so we turn our attention to the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America because they've compelled us to, with this listing of biblical verses that are now recognized by the church as more harmful than good. They're reviewing God's word and finding it inapplicable to our times in certain cases. There's a number of verses. Here's a sum up.
We now recognize as harmful.
Good evening. So why is the church talking about patriarchy and sexism? Here's part of a video that explains some of our church's teachings on these concepts.
In the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, or ELCA, we believe all people are created equally in the image of God. God intends for everyone to flourish. But because of the sin of sexism, women are often deprived of that right. As God's people, we believe we're called to seek justice and equity for all. But what does that mean for us today? And how are Lutherans responding? The Lutheran commitment to neighbor justice compels us to expose how patriarchy and sexism cause harm to all of creation. Throughout history, women and girls have suffered harm and injustice due to sex, gender, or both. This has roots in patterns of power, privilege, and prejudice within a patriarchy. Say that 3 times fast. There are very real consequences of a system centered on men, including gender-based violence, pay inequality, restricted access to healthcare and economic resources. The Christian tradition is both a challenge and a resource when it comes to addressing sexism. And let me tell you, it's been a big challenge. It's no secret the Christian church has been complicit in the sins of sexism and patriarchy. Scripture has been misused to oppress women. Biblical texts say things about women and girls that we now recognize as harmful. Some aspects of the scriptures reflect the cultures and societies in which they arose. But a Lutheran reading, centered on Christ, frees us from taking all the scriptures only literally. We don't have to conform to the social and cultural practices of the ancient world.
This is from the 2025 ELCA, Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, Churchwide Assembly. Many verses posed as they're correcting God for his misstatements. God's a sexist, apparently. For example, Genesis 3:16, to the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth. In pain you will bring forth children, yet your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. Of course, these are, God's words describing the fall on the woman. What Adam and Eve incurred in the curse is harmful to women. Another verse, Exodus 20:17, which is the 10th commandment. Presumably, this is objectionable because the neighbor's wife and female servant are given examples of what you're not allowed to covet. The entire passage, but I want you to understand that Christ is the head of every man, and the man is the head of a woman, and God is the head of Christ. And so the Bible's there saying, of course, man should submit to Christ in the same way Christ submits to the Father, then says wives should submit to husbands in the same way as a model of sacrificial love that reflects God's design for the world, his love for us, and the relationship of the Trinity. But what the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America hears is sexism and patriarchy. I mean, you go through this video, which they have a scroll of the objectionable verses, and there are, a good dozen of them. As not the Babylon Bee noted in their review of this, I think if Luther had seen this video, it's entirely possible he might have kept his 99 problems with the Catholic Church to himself. Corey Woodlawn, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
What I don't understand is how can you profess to be a spokesperson for God, but totally say that you have words that you're in conflict with? I don't think they're spokespersons. They seem like they're spokespersons for the left. And this would make Martin Luther just vomit in his grave if he heard these words. Thanks, man. Thanks,
Corey. I mean, it's is there any institution or even social organization or neighborhood or Starbucks that is not completely destroyed by awfuls, angry white leftist females? This identitarianism that we just were talking about in the context of political violence. It's also intellectual violence, and it destroys the sensibility of the institutions in which these people are in charge. I mean, it's not just the awfuls, it's also the male impersonators they married. But good grief. God is a sexist and a perpetuator of the patriarch. He's an oppressor. And of course, the things they say are in conflict with the other things they say. We all recognize that, in our faith, that people are equal in the eyes of God. Every person is equal in the eyes of God. And then go on to talk about God being, in particular verses, being sexist and patriarchal and not seeing women. The timing of this. Vodi Bakum, a great theologian, unexpectedly passed away yesterday after suffering a emergency medical incident, it was reported. Vodi Bakum wrote the book Fault Lines about 5 years ago. We had him on the show on the occasion of the publication of that book. And he was pushing back against woke racial ideology that was infecting Western churches. Basically a response to BLM and the promulgators of critical race theory. He and his wife had 9 children, only 56 years old, very sad. Really a great thinker. He had returned to the U.S. recently last year to serve as one of the founding faculty members of Founders Seminary in Florida. He had been overseas in Africa for some time as well. Vodi Bakum, among his great riffs, this one on manhood. The men of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America may want to listen intently. And frankly, a lot of the men in the Catholic Church, too.
You know, when you take manhood and try to look at manhood in isolation, you've already got a problem. The God who created us, he created us male and female. And so you cannot understand maleness apart from femaleness, right? You have to understand what it means to be a man, first of all, by what it means to be made in the image of God, and second of all, by what it means to be made as this counterpart to a woman. And this idea that God created us to be priest and prophet and provider and protector, God designed us that way. And when you take us away from that, like, you know, we're bigger than women, we're stronger than women, you know, we have all of these things that allow us to take advantage of women. They get pregnant, you know, we don't. We can just walk away from it and, you know, leave them with that. There are so many things that if left unchecked, they do allow for this toxic version of masculinity. And so what we have to call men back to is this understanding of manhood that is outside of themselves. And you being a man is not just about who you think you are or even who you want to be. It is about you pointing back to the one who made you. It's about you pointing back to the purpose for which he made you. And it's about you pointing back to the relationship that he intends for you to have with the opposite sex. And, you know, one of the things you mentioned is men not wanting to be married. That's an incredibly important part of the picture of what it means to be a man. This idea that we would be in a relationship, that we would be the head of a household, that we would be, like I said, priest, prophet, provider, protector within that context. All of that gives us not only purpose, but it gives us greater understanding of what masculinity is all about. And it also keeps it in check and it protects women. That's the irony of all of this. You know, people are fighting against the patriarchy. People are fighting against marriage. People are fighting against traditional roles. And the result is you leave women unprotected and you leave men unchecked to do whatever they will with those women.
So, yeah, he makes a great point, although because of instances like this, he hasn't sold me on the marriage piece of it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Marriage isn't working for so many of these women married. I mean, so many of these men married to so many of these women, these awfuls, and even worse, the rawfuls. But I do love Vodi Bakum. If you haven't read Fault Lines, you should. Rest in peace, Vodi Bakum. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro, answer line. Text on this. The Missouri Synod Lutheran Church doesn't recognize the ELCA, the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, as a Lutheran church. No, I understand there's schisms within these faith communities, but it's still an issue. This is still a sort of poisonous politicization of the Lutheran faith. Paul in New Lenox.
Hey, Dan. Just making a comment on God's infinite wisdom and your infinite wisdom when it references to Genesis 3:16, where it says it is the desire for a woman to rule over man. Can you imagine this country running by Kamala or even Hillary? It'd be a disaster.
Thanks for the call, Paul. Roger DeKalb.
Hey, yeah, thanks for the call. Thanks for the topic today, because I'm a lifelong Lutheran, and my church out here in DeKalb County, I'm not going to name it, we're a small church, and it's, the hatred is unbelievable. 8 out of 10 easily out in DeKalb County Lutheran churches are following similar doctrines where the redemption is not preached, the resurrection is not preached, crucifixion is not preached. It is just pathetic, and it's all social justice. The social justice in the Lutheran church is ruining it. Our church is going to drop Lutheran from its name. We're still going to teach the catechism because I think it's just a fantastic life guide for anybody. I try to live my life by the Beatitudes. They don't even want to teach that. It's unbelievable. So thanks for the great topic.
Thanks for the call, Roger. Yeah, well, I mean, we're getting to the point where I'm sure there are Catholic churches that are similarly oriented. I'm positive of it, actually. Catholic schools too, for that matter. They're rejecting we're past the Beatitudes. We're into rejecting the Ten Commandments. The passage I mentioned, the biblical verse that lays out the 10th commandment is objectionable to the Evangelical Lutheran Church. Dawn in Naperville.
Proverbs 31 explicitly explains a wife of noble character. It says she is clothed in strength and dignity, and she can last at the days to come. So read that passage and explain to me where they do not see a flourishing family. It brings joy. So she runs her household, she's a business owner, and it says at the end that beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. So, you know what? God's word always proves true. It gives joy, it produces human flourishing for children and for your family. And it is the opposite of what this person is speaking of. That's all I have to say. Read it for yourself. Read scripture for yourself. Trust me, it's about warning and blessing. It's about love of warning. And that's what the church's responsibility is. And that's just a shame of what's going on. Speak truth.
Thanks for the call, Dawn, one of our resident theologians. As a Catholic, I don't have to read scripture, so, we're exempt. I'm sure you've heard.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Nearly 2 years ago, terrorists murdered over 1,200 innocent Israelis and took 250 hostage. Today, the cries of the dead and dying seem drowned out by the shouts of anti-Semitic hatred. The most brutal attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust is already fading from memory. Yet as the world tries to look away, a light breaks through the darkness. Christians are speaking out in love and support for Israel. United in faith, they will boldly stand with Israel this October, joining a growing movement, the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, Flags of Fellowship. Flags of Fellowship unites churches all over America, planting over 1 million Israeli flags across our land. Together we will combat hate and the scourge of anti-Semitism, one flag at a time, and through our prayers we can save lives, bring hope, and be part of seeing a brighter future unfold. This October, please join this historic movement by donating your flag today. Raise your voice, declare your stand, and show the world that Israel is not alone. Visit ifcj.org. That's ifcj.org.
Of course, I was kidding about not having to, read the Bible because I'm Catholic. It's just one of those cliches about Catholicisms that go around if you hadn't heard. People getting all wired on it. In point of fact, this is a great occasion, the list of verses. I'm going to take that list of verses from the Evangelical Lutheran Church and start there, because then we can deal with the canards that are promulgated by leftist social justice warriors who like to cloak themselves in Christianity. You've heard me talk about Northridge for years, but now I want you to hear from one of the recent graduates. He is TJ Gorman. He just graduated second in his class in Marine Corps basic training. This is what he said about Northridge. I was blessed to attend Northridge not only for the education, but for the values and principles my mentors instilled within me. The school taught us what it meant to be a leader and lead through example, hard work, humility, and empathy. I thank God for Northridge. That's what makes Northridge Prep great for young men. The students are called to excellence to become true leaders. And these boys want to go to school each day. They love Northridge because they can be free to learn, to grow, and to be challenged. There's a real spirit of adventure on campus that you've just got to experience for yourself to appreciate it. For nearly 50 years, Northridge has partnered with parents like no other school in the Chicagoland area. And today, in our nation, we need more Northridge graduates to lead the way as men of intellect and character who love God. Guys like T.J. Gorman, men who put their values first. Boy, do we. Their open house, Northridge's open house, is Sunday, October 19th at 1 p.m. It's for boys in grades 6 through 12. You can register online at northridgeprep.org. Again, the Northridge Prep open house, Sunday, October 19th, 1 p.m., and you register online at northridgeprep.org.
Progressive presents Employee of the Month. Small Business Edition. Today's recipient from Michaela's Mobile Spa, Michaela! Michaela got a quick business insurance quote from Progressive and chose from over 30 customizable coverages. Sure, it helps she's her only employee and does literally everything. But while others would rest on their laurels, Michaela was hard at work saving big. So take that, hypothetical other employee who doesn't exist. Be your own Michaela. See if you could save in as little as 8 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Coverage is not available in all states or for all vehicles and coverage selections.
Here's a tale of Becky. Didn't know what to do with new meds prescribed and no real cost clue.
She squinted at prices, that can't be right. Then tapped GoodRx and saw the light.
She could get a deal, book telehealth if she feels.
Learn about those meds without any stress. That one little app does all the rest. Even my horse downloaded it. Dang, save time and money on prescriptions.
Check GoodRx. GoodRx is not insurance.
A great smile can make you feel happy and confident. So when you consciously conserve your teeth, that glowing smile will show through. At Best Dental Group, doctors Economos, Gavalis, and their staff are ready to help you create that perfect look or maintain the one you have now. Along with general dentistry, Best Dental Group is a multidiscipline practice with an orthodontist, periodontist, and prosthetic specialists on site. They use the newest breakthroughs in dental technology such as titanium implants, Invisalign clear braces, and laser treatments. Don't let fear get in the way. They can recommend sedation to make your experience as comfortable as possible. Best Dental Group is located in historic downtown Bartlett and is a multilingual office. Call 630-830-4930, 630-830-4930, or visit bestdental.org. Best Dental Group, sharing your conservative values and helping you to conserve your teeth.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up at 6:36, we'll return to the Comey indictment. He is expected to surrender to authorities today. He'll be arraigned October 9th, and he's looking forward to a trial. Guess what? So am I. We'll start there with University of Chicago law professor Richard Epstein, 6:36. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It's 59 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. The Chicago City Council has approved a $90 million settlement for nearly 200 civil rights violations involving a former police sergeant. That settlement resolves 176 lawsuits involving 180 wrongfully convicted people who spent nearly 200 years combined behind bars. The former Sergeant Ronald Watts and his unit were accused of framing people for drug crimes. Watts resigned in 2012 and was sentenced to prison in 2021. The settlement aims to provide justice for those affected and prevent further financial burdens on the city. And the Federal Immigration Processing Center in Broadview faces growing concerns that the facility to process arrestees is a de facto detention center plagued by inhumane conditions. Relatives of immigrants, lawyers, and activists all claim that there's as many as 200 people being held there at the same time with limited access to food and water. Federal authorities have yet to respond to questions about the center. News is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Have you been getting high quotes for dental implants? With medical PPO insurance, it's possible to save 90% off on average. See if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com, making smiles great again. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560, The Answer.
Catch More Money with leading economist Steve Moore.
I'm excited about America. I think things are going really well. I think we've turned a corner here. I think Biden economics is well behind us now. This is a miracle what's going on here. If anything, it's better than I thought it would be. So many good things can happen in the economy. Low inflation, low unemployment rate, consumer confidence up, business confidence up. All of the indicators are pointing north right now.
It's More Money, Saturday at 3 on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. It's a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
I'm Robert Anderson, president of McLaughlin Body Company in the Quad Cities, and a customer of Signature Bank. When our 100-year-old family-owned manufacturing company was looking for a new bank, we found an excellent partner with Signature Bank. Signature Bank understands the challenges with manufacturing in today's highly competitive environment. We recently participated in the New Markets Tax Credit Program and were fortunate to have the experts at Signature Bank help us navigate the complexities of this program. With Signature Bank's support, we were able to expand not only our facility, but ultimately our business. If you're looking for a trusted banking partner for your business, look to Chicago's own Signature Bank.
Signature Bank is looking for their next success story. To learn more about turning your business vision into reality, visit signaturebank.bank. Signature Bank, helping local businesses succeed. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
The following advertisement includes a celebrity impersonation.
The summer heat in Chicagoland is no joke. And if your old air conditioner is making funny noises, you may already know it's time for a new unit.
Look, your air conditioner, it's a disaster. People are telling me it's the worst ever.
Don't sweat it, literally. When it comes to cooling your home, Air Right Heating and Cooling does it the best.
And they love our country. Beautiful people.
Rebates are still available. Financing is flexible. And at Air Right, installations are smooth and professional with no surprises.
It's beautiful. Some people say it's the coolest air anyone's ever felt. I don't know. That's just what they're saying. It's doing an incredible job. Really tremendous.
Plus, tell them AM 560 sent you, and Air Right will give you $56 off any service. Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling today at AIR-RITE.com. Again, that's AIR-RITE.com. Air Right Heating and Cooling. Doing it right since 1959.
Are you looking to hire? ZipRecruiter finds the best candidate for your job fast. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Taking a look at your drive in the Team Hochberg Traffic Center with traffic and service of Blindster.com on the inbound Edens Lake Cook to Montrose, 17 minutes. A 14-minute ride on the Edens outbound Montrose to Lake Cook. On the inbound Kennedy Montrose to the Byrne Interchange, a 15-minute travel time. Kennedy outbound from the Byrne Interchange to Montrose, you're looking at 12 minutes. Eisenhower inbound from Wolf to the Old Post Office, a 25-minute ride and 16 minutes on the Eisenhower outbound from the Old Post Office to Wolf. On the Stevenson inbound, you're looking at 34 minutes from 355 to Lakeshore Drive. On the outbound Stevenson Lakeshore Drive to 355, 23 minutes. Dan Ryan inbound from 95th to the Byrne Interchange, an 18-minute ride and an 11-minute ride on the Dan Ryan outbound from the Byrne Interchange to 95th. Kyle started Blindster in 2010 to make quality custom-made blinds affordable to everyone. Traditional window covering retailers are expensive. Blindster's prices are low and their blinds are guaranteed to fit. Blindster.com. I'm KT. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now here's the latest forecast from QC Kinetics.
Today will be sunny and very warm with a high of 82. Tonight will be clear with a low of 58. Tomorrow will be very warm with plenty of sun. A beautiful start to the weekend, reaching a high of 83. Sunday will bring sunshine and very warm conditions with a high of 82. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Confounding some of the skeptics. The federal government has indicted former FBI Director Jim Comey on 2 charges, an obstruction of justice charge and a perjury charge. The indictment alleges Comey obstructed a congressional investigation into the disclosure of sensitive information in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1505. The indictment also alleges Comey made a false statement in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1001, stated he did not authorize someone at the FBI to be an anonymous source, and according to the indictment, that statement was false. This gave Pam Bondi and Kash Patel the opportunity to invoke an oft-favored phrase of the left when it came to President Trump and the indictments that were rendered against him. No one is above the law. Indeed. FBI Director Kash Patel, today your FBI took another step in its promise of full accountability. For far too long, previous corrupt leadership and their enablers weaponized for federal law enforcement, damaging once proud institutions and severely eroding public trust. Every day we continue the fight to earn that trust back. And under my leadership, this FBI will confront the problem head on. Well, Comey is looking forward to it. He is, of course, attempting to hi-hat the Trump administration, the federal government. He is a courageous victim who fought the fight knowing the potential dangers of doing so, knowing the perils of crossing Trump. But he wouldn't do it any other way because he's a man that who would rather die standing up than live on his knees. He cuts an impressive figure, doesn't he?
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either. Somebody that I love dearly recently said that fear is the tool of a tyrant, and she's right. But I'm not afraid, and I hope you're not either. I hope instead you are engaged, you are paying attention, and you will vote like your beloved country depends upon it, which it does. My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial and keep the faith.
Let's have a trial. And by the way, fear is the tool of the tyrant. I'm not familiar with that Taylor Swift song. I assume it's Taylor Swift because I know that's his intellectual North Star. The issue on the perjury is pretty straightforward. It's this testimony that he gave in September of 2020 before the Senate Judiciary Committee, reiterating what he had testified to in May of 2017. May of 2017 testimony, statute of limitations has run. September 30th, 2020 testimony, statute of limitations has not yet run.
On May 3rd, 2017, in this committee, Chairman Grassley asked you point blank, quote, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? You responded under oath, quote, never. He then asked you, quote, have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton administration? You responded again under oath, no. Now, as you know, Mr. McCabe, who works for you, has publicly and repeatedly stated that he leaked information to the Wall Street Journal and that you were directly aware of it and that you directly authorized it. Now, what Mr. McCabe is saying and what you testified to this committee cannot both be true. One or the other is false. Who's telling the truth?
I can only speak to my testimony. I stand by what the testimony you summarized that I gave in May of 2017.
So your testimony is you've never authorized anyone to leak. And Mr. McCabe, if he says contrary, is not telling the truth. Is that correct?
Again, I'm not going to characterize Andy's testimony, but mine is the same today.
Well, it's not just Andy McCabe versus Jim Comey on this. Something that Ted Cruz probably didn't know at the time, or certainly didn't have evidence of at the time, back in 2020, that came to light just last month when Kash Patel declassified documents related to Jim Comey's assertions. And we find that Columbia University law professor Daniel Richman admitted to FBI agents in interviews that he routinely communicated on behalf of Comey his longtime friend, with New York Times reporter Michael Schmidt, whose work was among the newspaper's 2018 Pulitzer Prize-winning stories on Russian election interference. The goal, Richmond told the FBI, was, quote, to correct stories critical of Comey, the FBI, and to shape future press coverage, unquote, outside of the Bureau's official press office, according to internal FBI memos that current Director Kash Patel delivered to Congress this week. This is from a story by John Solomon last month. Richmond insisted he did not believe he had confirmed or provided classified intelligence to reporters, but said he couldn't be 100%, noting he can only make his leak denial with a discount. That's according to the memo again. So his good friend, Columbia University law professor Daniel Richman, told the FBI that in point of fact, Comey was leaking information to him to leak to the New York Times for the purposes of, quoting Richman again, to correct stories critical of Comey and the FBI and to shape future press coverage. He also, it was indicated by Richmond, wanted to goad the Department of Justice into appointing a special prosecutor to go after President Trump. So, yeah, that's, I think, black letter perjury, his testimony versus what Daniel Richman told the FBI. Now, so it's not just Andy McCabe. For more on the matter, pleased to be joined again by Professor Richard Epstein, James Parker Hall, Distinguished Service Professor Emeritus of Law, and Senior Lecturer at the University of Chicago. Professor Epstein, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, but I'm not overjoyed to have to comment on this particular case.
Well, okay, you don't have to be joyful about it, but you have to comment. So what do you think about the indictment?
Well, I mean, the indictment itself is much less persuasive than the account that you just gave. In fact, it's a very thin indictment, which just talks about this in complete generalities, and the stuff that you've given is much more powerful because what it does do is it adds specificity to an indictment which has no names, no details, and no accounts. And I think that Comey has always been a man who's walked both sides of this line and is earning the wrath not only of the Republicans like Trump, but also the Democrats because of the way in which he treated Hillary Clinton. And I mean, so this is a man whom I knew as a law school when I was in law school. And so it was as a stand-up guy. But what happens is when you get into politics like this and you're desperate to keep your particular job, and it turns out that everybody's coming in from left and right, you panic and you start doing things that probably you shouldn't regret. Now, the interesting thing is, what about the administration? Because there are two doctrines at stake in here. One is, did he commit the perjury? And this testimony seems, until rebutted, to be fairly persuasive. But then the question is, do you want to bring this case at all? And my own view about this generally is I don't like seeing criminal indictments coming out of political squabbles. This is exactly the same thing that happened to Ted Olson, if you remember way back, when he made some testimony to the Senate, which was found to be false, and he was subjected to a special prosecutor in a case that turned out to last forever. A very bad kind of precedent. And what Trump has done here is he's fired the local district attorney who thought the evidence was insufficient to bring a criminal charge, which could easily mean, he said, I think it was more likely true than not, but I couldn't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And so what he did is he got rid of that person, put in his own hand-chosen person to prosecute the particular case. And what that does is it gives rise to another institutional issue, which is every bit as important. How independent is the Justice Department when it comes to the operation of its criminal law prosecution?
Yeah.
And the traditional view has been always you keep them highly independent. And in this particular case, it's quite clear that they're not.
Well, I mean, here's the thing on that, if I could interrupt. I mean, so I get the optics of this don't look good. He removes the U.S. attorney or effectively does, the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, and he installs someone that was a former counsel to him, and then the indictment happens. But the subtext of that is there appears to be, again, this is just based on reporting, I don't know firsthand, there appeared to be an argument that was raging within the U.S. Attorney's office under the former U.S. Attorney as to whether or not there was an action. There was evidence here that would substantiate a case against Comey that would make it make sense to pursue this case. So there were people that were similarly situated making arguments in both directions, which is not unusual. And I'm sure politics played a role with some, but you still had people that sort of equal credential that were making the case in both directions. And now you had a U.S. attorney that apparently agrees with the president that Jim Comey should be prosecuted, and that's happening. So again, I don't like the optics either, but by the same token, in terms of the underlying substance of it, just based on what I provided there, that's in the public domain on him perjuring himself, I mean, it's a credible case.
Well, I agree. I mean, so the problem in many of these cases is the one that I've always had to drop. Do you really want to bring credible cases against your political enemies? When in fact what it does is has all sorts of collateral consequences about the way in which you look at things. And remember, this is not the only time he's tried to pressure people. Danielle says so, and she just resigned rather than make the deal with respect to Eric Adams and so forth. And what's happened is, he's now got another hit list of all sorts of other people he wants. And so you're left with the really terrible kind of sensation that a president who's egregiously wrong in all sorts of other cases, and believe me, when he was a defendant, they were going after him with a fury that was utterly disgusting.
Right.
In this case, now he's trying to play catch-up. And, my own instinct about this is that the definition of prosecutorial discretion means that there are cases where you think you do have a situation in which there is liability, and in order to make sure that the so-called optics and the whole operation of the Justice Department doesn't fall to pieces, what you do is you decide not to prosecute. And what Trump always does, nothing is ever in a half measure. But this is not just a guy who on one occasion committed this kind of perjury and so forth. This is a man who's one of the most evil people on the face of the earth. And you did mention, I think, with the requisite degree of irony, that everybody who brings prosecution against somebody else always says that nobody is above the law, and there's only one exception to that.
Trump.
The people who bring in the prosecution. And so what you do is you sit here with a kind of a pit in your stomach. And the reason I'm unhappy about being here, much as I love you, Dan, is, as far as I can see, a plague on both your houses is essentially the appropriate action. He deserves to be punished, I think, given what you have said, if holds up. And Trump deserves not to bring a particular case. And so there you sit. But what's going to happen, of course, is the collateral consequences are going to dominate this. My guess is that there will now be a crusade to make Jim Comey into some kind of a public hero.
Right.
Just as they try to do with everybody else in this sort of kind of affair. What the president has to do is separate his political resentments, all of which are justified, from his official duties, and care more about the structure and the integrity of the department than all this that's going on. It's not as though when you put Kash Patel on this particular thing, you're getting a neutral FBI head. You're getting somebody who's every bit as partisan as the president.
Well, yeah, but there's nothing. This is like one of these. This is unicorn stuff. The neutral FBI head, neutral prosecutors. It's like neutral media. There's no such thing. Those words are thrown around like they actually apply to someone, and they don't. The question is whether you're fair-minded. You definitely have political perspectives. Everybody has political perspectives. Jim Comey has political perspectives, clearly. But it's how you go about carrying out, fulfilling the duties of your particular job or your charge. That's the matter. And I guess my point, you've answered the question in terms of why not do this. And I take that. I think we've talked about this a long time in terms of the lawfare that was perpetuated against Trump is going to boomerang and be revisited on the left. And we're going down a dangerous road. This is almost inevitable. But the flip side is to say to those who want, if there's a credible case to make and no one's above the law as a standard, then you're gosh darn right Jim Comey should be prosecuted. And if you want to accuse us of retributory lawfare, then go ahead. Because if we don't do this, then it's going to send a signal to the left that they can do the kind of things they did against Trump and basically all kinds of Trump associates during Russian collusion, put them through the process, the punishment being the process, put them through that, bankrupt them. They can do that with impunity. And when a Republican gets controls of the reins of powers and appoints his or her attorney general, then when it comes to any sort of accountability, they will always show up to this, knife fight with a handshake. And so what do you say to that?
Well, I'm going to try to say this. I do disagree with about one thing. I think when you talk about recent heads of the FBI, what you're saying is true. But I think if you go back to William Webster and Louis Freeh and so forth, the professionalism much dominated the current type of situation.
Yeah.
Because Webster was regarded as a kind of a folk hero on the part of everybody who knew him, because he seemed in very sensitive positions to have kept the kind of integrity that we expect to have out of our public officials. So the one modification I would give to your statement is I don't think you're wrong. I think what the correct situation is that the estimation of the FBI has gone down because of the politicization of the office. Now, you're making a very powerful point, okay? And it's one that is constantly fought. You have bad motivation for bringing a valid case. Do you worry about the motivation, or do you worry about the case? Mm-hmm. And you're making a powerful argument. Well, you've got to worry about the particular case. Otherwise, what happens, there's going to be a fatal asymmetry. And look, just the other day, if you recall, the Google guy wrote a letter saying, of course Joe Biden pressured us for all these vaccine cases. And what made that one particularly horrible is when they did try to bring a lawsuit about it, the Supreme Court said, none of you guys have standing to talk about one of the great scandals of our particular time, even though you were all hurt by it. And so what's going on here, we're just keeping score. And there's one miscarriage after another. And it's certainly, let me put it to this way. If he does bring this case and the evidence bears it out, then a jury is going to be bound to convict Comey of what's going on. Now, he professes his particular innocence. He's allowed to do that. But if you'll note, he never addressed the question of did he have any relationship with David Richmond, who was a cousin, obviously, guy on the other side of this situation. And I think it's been pretty well known that he talked to that guy all the time. But the fly in the ointment is going to be, did he talk about him to urge him on to explain what happened, or did he release classified information? And if it's simply the form of talking to him, the case is going to be a bit more difficult, but still it could be perjury if what you said is I never talked to him at all, and what you did is you talked to him about non-classified information. And so this is going to be a hornet's nest, and I think in the end, unfortunately, if the case is there, and they want to bring it, there's nothing you could do to say that this is an abuse of prosecutorial discretion. Be overjoyed about the fact that you can get even with your enemy by proving the case that it's valid as a matter of fact in law. And that's the situation that we have. Now, the Trump Blue Boys, what they're going to do is come out, well, he was guilty of everything that they charged with early on, which is absurd. I mean, the way in which they treated him in those cases and their fake conviction, Miss Letitia James, she comes upon and says, he's defrauded. The bank doesn't want the money. I'll take it. So you owe me $400 million for doing reputable transactions. I mean, if this had done to me, I'd be scarred for life. And I'm afraid that Trump is. And one of the things that the American left did is they made him a much more vengeful president in his second term than he was in his first term. And there are going to be a lot of innocent people that are going to get crossed in the crossfire as he starts going after them. My guess is what Adam Schiff did will probably contain elements of falsehood, maybe not perjury and so forth, but serious stuff. And everybody who's involved with the Hunter Biden situation, it's going to be serious stuff. I don't know whether they have enough to get Clapper and Brennan. What I do know is what you know. They're going after him.
Well, I'll tell you, there may be some people that are not guilty under criminal law, the available criminal law, but I don't think there's anybody on his hit list that you can properly describe as innocent. You know what I mean?
Yes, I agree with you. I mean, that's the tragedy. Look, when I went through all of this, but make it very clear, I don't like criminal prosecutions because of their collateral consequences. But when it came to Trump, every time they were after him, I rose to the extent that I could, even on your show, in his defense, right? And I mean, I'm trying to be a consistent person. But what I'm doing is saying how I would act. But I cannot tell a prosecutor who has a strong case he can't do it to get revenge, because the motive is irrelevant if the case is strong as a matter of law. And then we'll use that other funny word, optics. And we don't know how this is going to start to play out. We don't know what's going to go on in these cases. And one of the points that I do want to make is you were certainly right that the decision in the Eastern District of Virginia probably was one that was highly contentious both ways around. which only adds confusion and fuel to this most unhappy but very vibrant fiber.
Professor Richard Epstein, James Parker Hall, Distinguished Service Professor, Emeritus of Law, and Senior Lecturer at the University of Chicago. Professor Epstein, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Oh, I always enjoyed it with you. Bye-bye, Dan.
Bye. And Professor Epstein joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
President Trump has made some pretty amazing claims since he's taken his seat as president. He's delivering on what he promised. On Inauguration Day, Trump's very first declaration was,
"The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish."
Consider this. Since the election, gold has shot up hundreds of dollars per ounce, shattering all-time record highs. Fox Valley Coins does not pretend to know the future, but they do know that if you're buying or selling gold or silver, they are the place to do it. These are some of the top reasons people choose a dealer. You want a national dealer with a local presence you can deal with face-to-face. You want a large selection, the best prices, and great service. You want to walk in with cash and walk out with the best product. You want to deal with legacy dealers with integrity. Whether buying or selling or just one valuation, Fox Valley Coins is your answer for choosing a dealer. Visit Fox Valley Coins, 1 light north of I-88 on Route 59 at the Naperville-Warrenville border. FoxValleyCoins.com. Family-owned integrity since 1981.
AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, coming up at 7:07. We'll have a wide-ranging political discussion on all the matters that were this week with Scott Mccay, publisher of The Hayride. That's at 7:07. It's now 7 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
He's a corrupt, dirty cop. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. President Trump just posted that on Truth Social about the FBI director he fired in 2017, the morning after James Comey was indicted. The president also wrote that Comey told a very serious and far-reaching lie for which a very big price must be paid.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump.
Comey posted that on Instagram saying he's innocent. Let's have a trial. He'll surrender today and be arraigned next month.
Comey faces a 2-count indictment, including charges of giving false statements and obstruction of a congressional proceeding. Both alleged crimes relate to Comey's testimony during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing back in 2020, which focused on the investigation into ties between Russia and President Donald Trump's 2016 campaign.
Fox's Chanley Painter. Democrats condemned the indictment. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries called it a disgraceful attack on the rule of law. FBI Director Kash Patel just posted on X accusations the FBI is politicizing law enforcement come from the same bankrupt media that sold the world on Russiagate. We're learning more about Joshua John, the gunman who shot at an immigration enforcement facility in Dallas, Texas Wednesday. Investigators say he planned it for months and targeted agents. And ICE Associate Director Marcos Charles says John also had been tracking them using apps.
The media has been amplifying these apps even as we warned them it would only lead to more attacks on law enforcement.
No agents were shot, but 3 ICE detainees were. 1 was killed, and then John shot and killed himself. President Trump's ready to impose even more tariffs on more imports. Posting on Truth Social, it'll be a 100% charge on pharmaceuticals, but drug companies building manufacturing plants in the U.S. will be exempt. He's also putting tariffs on some trucks, upholstered furniture, and household products like kitchen cabinets and bathroom vanities. And in a few hours, he'll leave the White House, go to New York to attend golf's Ryder Cup that's already underway this morning. Americans versus Europeans. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It is 58 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. Mostly sunny, 81 today. Federal agents are ignoring a suburban Chicago Fire Department's demands to remove protective fencing around the ICE detention facility in Broadview. Fox's Jeff Manasso reports.
Tall protective fencing went up recently on a public street outside an ICE facility in Broadview to limit recent escalations of confrontations between protesters and agents. Fencing that Broadview Fire is asking the Department of Homeland Security to remove, citing fire safety concerns and emergency access. DHS has not responded to the city's request as the facility and others across the nation are now on high alert, raising security postures following what the FBI says was a deadly act of targeted violence violence at an ICE facility in Dallas Wednesday, and other recent attacks on facilities and agents in recent months. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
And the Trump administration says 3 major public school districts could lose $24 million in funding because their policies are supporting transgendered students. The U.S. Education Department's Office for Civil Rights had given New York, Chicago, and Fairfax County, Virginia schools until Tuesday to agree to those changes. Now, among them were rescinding policies that allowed students access to restrooms and locker rooms that match their gender identity. The districts risk losing funding for specialty magnet schools as a result. And a Chicago man is charged with forging the signatures of 2 U.S. District Court judges. Federal prosecutors allege 67-year-old Walter Browski forged the signatures of Judges Rebecca Pallmeyer and Virginia Kendall on multiple documents, including one stating that his filing restrictions had been rescinded. Each of the 11 counts is punishable by a maximum sentence of 5 years in federal prison. This news update is quickly delivered to you by Quick Delivery Service. Why are you sitting in Friday traffic? Time is money. When you need your important items delivered quickly, Quick Delivery Service will be there to pick it up and take it to its destination. Go to quickdelivery.com. A check of the roads comes up in 2 minutes on AM 560, The Answer.
Town Hall News, where conservative voices cut through the noise from breaking headlines to fearless opinion. We report what matters without apology. Written by people who actually believe what you believe. Town Hall tells the stories the corporate press buries, from President Trump to Capitol Hill, from pivotal elections to your everyday lives. Join the movement at townhall.com. Real stories, real reporters, real conservative media.
Allie Dwyer and her 3 sons lost their hero, Stephen. Serving our country in the United States Army was Stephen's calling, and flying helicopters was his passion. Stephen was killed in a Black Hawk helicopter crash over the Mediterranean Sea. Thanks to friends like you, Tunnel to Towers provided his family with a mortgage-free home, giving them security and hope in their darkest hours. Help more families like the Dwyers. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. That's T2T.org.
Life insurance. Why are you putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think you don't need it? There's lots of excuses for putting off life insurance. But if you weren't there, who would pay the mortgage and other bills? With Ethos, you could be covered in 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Ethos, fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at ethos.com/term. That's ethos.com/term.
Your local State Farm agent Anthony DeGrotto combines good neighbor service with surprisingly great rates. You can combine your home, auto, and life insurance to not only save you money, but give you the peace of mind you've been looking for. Anthony DeGrotto is your go-to agent in Chicagoland. He and his team will work for you to provide the best service you expect at the price you want. Combine your home, auto, and life insurance today. Anthony DeGrotto will help you mix and match things perfectly. His State Farm office is a top pick 2024 Daily Herald Reader's Choice Award winner. He's a proud supporter of Tunnel to Towers and like-minded as you. His State Farm agency is currently looking to add members at their Roselle office. Call Anthony at 847-895-1500 today or visit DeGrottoSF.com. That's DeGrottoSF.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to State Farm underwriting requirements.
Let's roll you into work on this Friday. Traffic-wise, looking good across the area. We've got slowdowns in the Kennedy inbound between Montrose and Kimball Avenue. About a 9-minute delay in the area. About a 10-minute backup if you've got an early morning flight at O'Hare inbound on the Kennedy between Foster and Montrose Avenue. Looking good in the Edens, no major delays. 16-minute cruise from the Edens inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose. How about the Stevenson inbound? Not bad. About a 38-minute drive in from 355 to DuSable Lakeshore. Now, slow traffic building on the Stevenson inbound between Ashland and the Dan Ryan Expressway due to that slow ramp to inbound Dan Ryan. DuSable Lakeshore northbound between Bryn Mawr and Hollywood stacking up slowly. And the Tri-State Tollway, we've got some stop-and-go traffic northbound between Stevenson Expressway and Hinsdale Oasis. That's about a 75-minute trip in. Traffic, a service of Turnkey. Turnkey is the key to cyber protection. For a limited time, Turnkey is offering all new customers their first month of service free, including Microsoft licensing, antivirus, anti-malware, data backup, plus 24/7 help desk support. Visit turnkey.pro today. I'm John Cruz. Chicago's Morning Answer
continues next. Now check out your QC Kinetics weather forecast from the
Today
National
will be
Weather
sunny
Service.
and very warm with a high of 82. Tonight will be clear with a low of 58. Tomorrow will be very warm with plenty of sun. A beautiful start to the weekend, reaching a high of 83. Sunday will bring sunshine and very warm conditions with a high of 82. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. In the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination, in the wake of the latest attack on ICE officers at the facility in Dallas, in the wake of a PhD being sentenced to 235 months in federal prison for firebomb attacks, according to the Department of Justice, the PhD in question, this communist academic, acknowledged that the attacks were inspired by Hamas's October 7th massacre, and then he called on others to attack college campuses in support of Palestine. Placed a bag of 6 explosive devices, commonly known as Molotov cocktails, underneath the fuel tank of a marked University of California Police Department patrol car parked near the UC Berkeley campus, lit the bag on fire, and fled, causing the patrol car to catch fire. He also tried to firebomb a federal building in Oakland, California. He operated a far-left Antifa blog and posted about the squad car firebombing on a website called Abolition Media. The article was called Student Intifada as Our Historical Duty, Fulfill It or Betray It. He was a PhD in Black Studies, honky. PhD in Black Studies from where? Say it with me. Northwestern University. Northwestern University in the news. The value of my degree declines yet again. It's like an asymptote. It is trending towards zero. He wrote a manifesto that his violence was for Palestine. The manifesto concluded with, quote, "Glory to the martyrs, blessed is the flame." Now he is serving 19 years in federal prison. Pro-lifers. The woman who socked a pro-life reporter in the face during a filmed interview offered an apology, but claimed her antagonistic victim goaded her into violence. She asked her a question about her views on abortion. Brianna Rivers of the Bronx admitted she was wrong for slugging Savannah Craven Antow, a reporter for pro-life advocacy group Live Action. To Savannah, listen to this apology. "I sincerely apologize because I can't sit around and allow you to continue pushing this one-sided narrative. I understand hands being put on someone is never the answer, but throwing rocks and hiding hands is worse." Rhetorical rocks, apparently, because Savannah didn't throw any rocks. So I apologize for striking you, but I cannot let you to express your opinion. I understand what I did was wrong, but what you did justified what I did. That's some apology, but this is the intellectual level you're dealing with. Oh, and by the way, despite this confession to a vicious assault, if you've seen this video, if you haven't, check it out. Savannah, Live Action. She's asking a question. She has a microphone. She's asking the woman a question. This woman stops and is answering her questions. And then she gets, roundhoused, knocked to the ground. I mean, not life-threatening injuries, but significant. It's a battery. Alvin Bragg is declining to prosecute. Of course he is.
On April 3rd, 2025, I, Savannah Craven Antow, was brutally assaulted in the streets of Harlem while conducting interviews on Planned Parenthood. The entire shocking interaction was caught on camera by my husband, leaving no doubt that the assailant, Brianna J. Rivers, was not only guilty of aggravated assault, but also exulting over her own vicious criminal act. Rivers was arrested and reportedly charged with felony assault. But after an interview with 2 prosecutors, I was informed that the felony had been downgraded to a misdemeanor, despite indisputable video evidence of brutal assault and battery, producing significant injury, trauma, and resulting in over $3,000 in medical bills. Over the next few weeks, the office of the New York District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, infamous for its 2-tiered system of justice that favors criminals over victims, failed to pursue the case. On July 23rd, 2020.
A piece by a trans Tifa type activist named Evan Urquhart. Charlie Kirk is dead. Here's why I'm celebrating. That's the headline. How could anyone be sorry? How could anyone be mournful? A man who kept a watch list of professors whose views he disagreed with is now dead. He claimed a passage in Leviticus said gay men should be stoned to death, calling this God's perfect law, and now he's dead. In part, I'm celebrating the fact that however much evil remains in the world, at least nothing can ever bring him back. But mostly, I'm celebrating because he's dead and I'm still alive. So, pick an issue, any issue. Pro-life, support for Israel, support for enforcing immigration laws, a belief in 2 sexes. Any of those views, a belief in dialogue and persuasion, not coercion. Any of those views potentially subject you to political violence from the left because they veer from the orthodoxy the left demands. That's where it's at. And this is what President Trump had to say about it.
Who do you hold responsible for the uptick in left-wing violence in the country?
Radical left rhetoric. The radical left is causing the problem. They're out of control. They're saying things. And they're really dumb people. I mean, I look at Crockett. I look at some of these people. They're very low IQ people, actually. But the radical left is causing this problem. Not the right, the radical left. And it's going to get worse. And ultimately, it's going to go back on them. I mean, bad things happen when they play these games. And I'll give you a little clue. The right is a lot tougher than the left. But the right's not doing this. They're not doing it. And they better not get them energized because it won't be good for the left. And I don't want to see that happen either. I'm the president of all the people. But the radical left is causing this. The radical left Democrats are causing this problem. And it gets worse. It gets worse. And it'll be a point where other people won't take it anymore, and that will not be good for the radical left, and we don't want that.
Scott Mccay is publisher of The Hayride, senior editor at the American Spectator, and author of Racism, Revenge, and Ruin, as well as From Hellmarsh with Love, a Mike Holman novel. Scott, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Hey, I'm going to hijack this segment for 5 seconds because the sequel to From Hellmarsh with Love, which is called Blockbusters, just went up at Amazon last night and should be live over the weekend.
Very good. All right. Yeah. Always be closing. I respect that.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, you know, the violence across the issue spectrum, as I was just talking about, coming from the left, and what President Trump had to say about it. Your view?
Well, he's right. Obviously, everywhere you look, and you did a really nice job of just giving us the latest. But it is like these people have really gone over the falls, particularly in the last month or so. I noticed that, and then now we've got a shutdown fight coming that really, I mean, Schumer backed himself into this corner back in March and I think is even worse off now. Everything is kind of caving in on them, and their response has been violence. I mean, these are not people who are capable of introspection politically, and I think that they've kind of begun to realize that the country's moving on from woke communism, which culturally kind of set the tone for this country over the past 10 or 15 years, and people are sick of it. And these are not folks that are very good at handling rejection.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah,
that's
to say
like
the least.
what you're getting. Yeah, well, I mean, so Charlie Kirk lit a whole lot of college campuses on fire because, I mean, he would show up to a campus and would calmly debate the weirdest weirdos of the left, and it would be on video and it would go viral. And college kids who have had weirdos like that as professors for, half their classes and had no particular power to engage those people, knowing the lack of leverage that they had in those situations, were all of a sudden empowered by, here's a guy that shows up and is willing to talk about anything and wins the argument over and over and over again. And so Turning Point became a big deal on college campuses. And even after all the work that Charlie had done, like, it was beginning to kick in the turbo mode on all these campuses. And of course, it's really doing it now that he's been assassinated. But so I think the campus left, between the exposure that some of these outlets like Campus Reform and others have put out there, and then Charlie coming around to college campuses and really putting a spotlight on it. Like, these guys are no longer able to operate, in the, I'm not really shadows, but in the bubble that they've occupied
without challenge.
Right, without challenge. And all of a sudden, it's like they've got to defend ideas that, like, I mean, these are Maoists, these guys. We already know where Maoism leads, right? Even the Chinese communists abandoned Maoism in favor of kind of more like Nazi fascism instead, and found that was a better solution for them, right? And so the left, you're pushing discredited ideologies on a captive audience on these college campuses, and all of a sudden that audience is beginning to insist on not being so captive. Fewer people are going to college, so like the entire enterprise is not really up in smoke, but in decline, and they can't handle any of this stuff because these are people who, let's face it, they didn't get in schoolyard fights as kids. They didn't understand, hey, in life you have obstacles, you got to overcome those, and you got to be tough enough to deal with this kind of stuff. And they've never overcome any of that. And so they're very brittle people, and it starts on college campuses, but it's pretty much everywhere where you see leftists. I don't even want to call them liberals anymore because they're not liberal. I mean, Tulsi and RFK Jr. are liberals, and they threw them right out of the Democrat Party.
Yes,
but they just can't. These guys can't handle this, and you're starting to see, a psychodrama play out in front of the whole country with an entire class of people that simply can't handle the idea that they're not in charge of anything.
You mentioned the prospect of a government shutdown. This time around, it may be different if that's what Schumer and Jeffries want to do over another $500 billion in Obamacare money, ostensibly to provide health care for people in this country illegally, among other things. Russ Vought the OMB director, ordered agencies to identify all programs that depend on discretionary funding, which lapses next week, and don't align with the president's priorities. Employees who administer these disfavored programs or projects will not be furloughed. They'll be fired. So this time, the shutdown, a quote-unquote shutdown, the shutdown theater we've gone through innumerable times, will be met with a bit of a different response from the administration, though I hasten to ask, why aren't those employees who are dependent on discretionary funding of programs that are not aligned with the president's priorities fired anyway? But go ahead.
Well, I don't want to get into bureaucraties on this because I'm not an expert, but as I'm told, it's a lot easier to riff all of these people when you get into a shutdown situation and the rules don't generally apply. Like, this is going to be one of these deals where as soon as the government is not shut down, if this goes through, they're going to be in court. Oh, you can't fire all these people. But when you get in a shutdown situation, first of all, the courts don't operate. And this was one of the things back in March when Chuck Schumer backed down, and I think he's going to back down this time too. But when Schumer backed down in March, and when they had a continuing resolution and they didn't filibuster it, he goes on Chris Hayes' show on MSNBC and he says, look, if there's a shutdown, we can't use the legal option, right? In other words, they had this entire campaign of lawfare where they're trying to get injunctions from all these left-wing judges on all of Trump's executive orders and all that kind of stuff. Like Schumer backed off on the shutdown spectacle in March to keep the court option open and the lawfare. So if there's a shutdown this time, there are no lawsuits about people who got riffed and don't like it. That's all gone. And by the time the shutdown would be over, it's like 7 weeks. They've had to go find another job. And at that point, it's, I don't know that anybody's going to actually pursue these lawsuits. And then the positive piece, if you're a Republican, if there's a full-on 7-week shutdown until Congress passes the appropriations bills, which is the schedule is to get them all done by mid-November or so, you're actually in regular order on the federal budget, which you haven't been in a generation. And this is something when Mike Johnson took over as speaker, he was, I'm hell-bent on making this happen. And it's taken a couple of years to be able to do it, but he's actually fairly close. Now, the Democrats could very well filibuster those appropriations bills. The first three have actually come out. The Senate had a little different report of the bill, and so there 3 of the 12 are in conference. The other 9 are going to go to the House floor, soon, and then they'll go over to the Senate. But the thing is when you're in a shutdown, the Democrats have a situation. It's a rock and a hard place. Do you filibuster the appropriations bills, and the things being appropriated are just everything but the essential stuff is shut down, and here's old Russ with pink slips for everybody that you like. I mean, they don't have any leverage. It's a serious problem for them. Schumer saw it back in March and staged a strategic retreat and got eviscerated for it. But the rules of the road are no different now. And so I think what's going to happen is he's going to back down again, and they're going to get rid of him as the Senate Minority Leader.
Next up, I
don't have a violin small enough to play for him.
No, exactly. Boy, the sadness that would envelop the nation, I'm sure. I wanted to get one more topic in before we let you go, and that was your piece on this sort of the media landscape changing and the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel, and then the uneven return of Jimmy Kimmel. The Disney-owned stations he's back on, the Nexstar and Sinclair-owned stations he's not back on, and what you think that signals in terms of this this changing landscape that I mentioned.
Well, one of the things that the left went crazy because Brendan Carr talked about, what Jimmy Kimmel had said was not sufficient for broadcast media. He's going to pull ABC's broadcast license. ABC doesn't have a broadcast license. All of their affiliates have broadcast license.
Right.
So when Brendan Carr talks about the licensing issue for ABC programming, what he's really saying is, well, we might look at the broadcast licenses of the affiliates. And it's an empty threat. He's not going to go after 200 or something broadcast licenses. He's not going to do that. But by bringing it up, he is taking the part of the affiliates in their leverage against the network. Most of these broadcast affiliates absolutely hate this woke programming because you have to sell. I mean, the network has commercial time and the affiliates have commercial time. And it's really hard to fill your local time when there's some woke show that your audience in, Jackson, Tennessee or Paducah, Kentucky has zero interest in watching the show. The local furniture store in town doesn't want their ads to show on Jimmy Kimmel. And so, but they've been powerless to do anything about this. Now, Carr is actually taking their part. And it's interesting because, you may get a revolt, say Sinclair and Nexstar decide, well, let's go find some programming that we can put on our stations instead of Jimmy Kimmel. And the minute that glass is broken, it changes the entire landscape where TV networks are concerned, because the affiliates then become a lot more independent. And I think that that's where we're going. And of course, the entire media marketplace is kind of obsolete in the days where most people stream a show rather than make an appointment to watch it on TV. And so, this whole model that's a top-down, we're going to decide what programming to force people to watch. You can't really do that anymore. And once you do, there's zero reason why Disney should have the kind of power that they have. And I think we're starting to see a migration away from that probably changes media forever. It so happens that Blockbusters, which is about Hollywood and film and TV, really gets into that topic and maps out a world where, a Disney or an NBC or some of these other, big five media companies no longer have sway over American culture. And I think, some of the other novels that I've written have actually had pretty good predictive capabilities to them. And I think that this is going to be true of Blockbusters as well. And you're seeing it with some of the stuff that's happening with Kimmel.
Blockbusters is Scott Mckay's latest Mike Holman novel. His previous one is From Hellmarsh with Love. He has also written a political tome, Racism, Revenge, and Ruin, to check out. He's the publisher of The Hayride and senior editor at The American Spectator. Scott Mccay, thank you as always.
Always a pleasure, Dan. See you soon.
Thank you. And he joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
When the power goes out, life stops. Heat, AC, fridge, phones, all gone. But with a Generac home standby generator from True Power Generator Service, your home powers back on automatically, so you're never left in the dark. Book your consultation today at TruePowerGenerator.com. That's TruePowerGenerator.com. Plus, 560 listeners get a free 10-year extended warranty. Terms and conditions apply. Call for details. True Power Generator Service and Generac. It's not just a generator, it's a power move.
Want to see if you could pay less in taxes? Try the quick and easy tax calculator at willsave.com. Yes, a free tax calculator. That's WILSAVE.com. Calculate how you could keep more of your hard-earned money and give less to Uncle Sam, especially in retirement. Get your free tax analysis today at willsave.com. And don't forget to tune in to Protecting Your Assets with Steve Shyman every Saturday morning at 8, right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Dennis Prager here for AmFed Coin and Bullion. I've always been a strong believer in precious metals investment, and I've always been fascinated with rare coin collecting. But owning the wrong coins that only make dealers a lot of money can be catastrophic for your investment portfolio. AmFed Coin and Bullion specializes in taking people out of non-performing coin portfolios and turning them into gold, silver, or platinum bullion. They tailor a portfolio based on your goals and not what they want to sell you. You'll never experience scare tactics, misleading hype, or high-pressure sales from owner Nick Grovich and his very knowledgeable staff. They will evaluate your portfolio, show you how your coins have performed, and take the time to educate you on the ugly industry practices so that you can make an informed decision. Smart people can make very bad investments when they're under pressure and lack the facts. Call 800-221-7694. That's 800-221-7694. AmericanFederal.com.
AM 560, The Answer.
Coming up, the value of my Northwestern degree is not the only thing in great decline. The value of my diploma from Bennett Academy is too. Coming up 7:37. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It's 58 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. The Chicago City Council has approved a $90 million settlement for nearly 200 civil rights violations involving a former police sergeant. This decision addresses one of the city's biggest police misconduct scandals. The settlement resolves 176 lawsuits involving 180 wrongfully convicted people who spent nearly 200 years combined behind bars. The former Sergeant Ronald Watts and his unit were accused of framing people for drug crimes. Watts resigned in 2012 and was sentenced to prison in 2021. The settlement aims to provide justice for those affected and prevent further financial burdens on the city. And according to a new study, Illinois is the most dangerous state in the nation for nursing home safety violations. The study found that our state had 2,300 penalties among 682 certified nursing facilities. Total fines reached $78.4 million for an average of $115,000 per facility. News is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Have you been getting high quotes for dental implants? With medical PPO insurance, it's possible to save 90% off on average. See if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com, making smiles great again. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Join AM 560 on Thursday, October 2nd in Glen Ellen for a conservative conversation, an evening of insight, inspiration, and ideas on how conservatives can unite around shared values to advance a common agenda. Speakers will include Pastor Lorenzo Sewell of 180 Church in Detroit, Jeannie Ives, and John Anthony, with each bringing a unique perspective on faith, policy, and community leadership. Get your tickets today at 560theanswer.com/conversation. That's 560theanswer.com/conversation.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. Did you know the IRS has programs specifically designed to help people struggling with tax debt? Powerful tax assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. No one knows these programs better than the experts at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution firm. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, their award-winning tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. One call to Optima can start the process, helping to put an end to your worries about wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other aggressive IRS actions. Find the best options to solve your tax problems. Call the experts at Optima Tax Relief today for a free consultation.
Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
When the power goes out, life stops. Heat, AC, fridge, phones, all gone. But with a Generac home standby generator from True Power Generator Service, your home powers back on automatically, so you're never left in the dark. Book your consultation today at TruePowerGenerator.com. That's TruePowerGenerator.com. Plus, 560 listeners get a free 10-year extended warranty. Terms and conditions apply. Call for details. True Power Generator Service and Generac. It's not just a generator, it's a power move.
The following advertisement includes a celebrity impersonation.
The summer heat in Chicagoland is no joke. And if your old air conditioner is making funny noises, you may already know it's time for a new unit.
Look, your air conditioner, it's a disaster. People are telling me it's the worst ever.
Don't sweat it, literally. When it comes to cooling your home, Air Right Heating and Cooling does it the best.
And they love our country. Beautiful people.
Rebates are still available, financing is flexible, and at Air Right installations are smooth and professional with no surprises.
It's beautiful. Some people say it's the coolest air anyone's ever felt. I don't know. That's just what they're saying. It's doing an incredible job. Really tremendous.
Plus, tell them AM 560 sent you, and Air Right will give you $56 off any service. Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling today at AIR-RITE.com. Again, that's AIR-RITE.com. Air Right Heating and Cooling, doing it right since 1959.
Salem News Channel is America's fastest growing conservative TV network.
It's an absolute crazy day.
Home to the largest lineup of free speech champions anywhere. Delivering in-depth insight and unapologetic opinion on today's biggest news stories.
Americans aren't going to put up with this anymore.
SNC brings you the news that matters, told with integrity and clarity. Watch Salem News Channel free 24/7 on your television. Stream now on Pluto TV.
Hey, it's Scott Tucker and my new co-host,
Amy Jacobson.
On AM 560. We wanted you to know that we have a special show every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. here on AM 560, The Answer. It is Retirement Decoded with Scott Tucker and
Amy Jacobson.
It's every Sunday morning from 7 to 9 a.m. 2-hour show, 2-hour radio extravaganza. Amy, we're going to tantalize the listening public and the listening private with all kinds of retirement planning information. So tune in at AM 560 Sunday mornings at 7 a.m.
Protect your liver and give it the support it deserves with Active Liver from New Nordic. Find Active Liver in stores at your local CVS, Meijer Grocery, or online at Amazon or at newnordicusa.com.
All right, checking traffic as you head into Friday, work and school. We've got some stop-and-go traffic on the Kennedy inbound between Central and Montrose right there near the airport. Also, Kennedy inbound between Montrose and Belmont, about a 10-minute backup in the area. 12-minute delay on the Stevenson. If you're inbound between Harlem and Western Avenue, traffic slowly building on the Tri-State this morning. Northbound between Stevenson and Hinsdale Oasis, about a 70-minute commute there. On the Edens, no major incidents. It's about an 18-minute drive inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose. On the Ikes, inbound, about a 29-minute drive if you're inbound between Manheim and First Avenue. And the Tri-State getting busy this morning. Stop and go if you're northbound between Reagan Memorial, the Tollway, and Eisenhower Expressway. This report sponsored by Staples. Your local Staples has hot deals and super low prices throughout the store on everything for your business. And right now at Staples, save up to $125 off your print order. Exclusions apply. Visit staples.com/print for details. Ends 11/1. Plus save even more with the Easy Rewards program at Staples. I'm John Cruz. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of your QC Kinetics weather forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be sunny and very warm with a high of 82. Tonight, expect clear skies with a low of 58. Tomorrow, anticipate very warm weather with plenty of sun, marking a beautiful start to the weekend with a high of 83. Sunday will bring sunshine and more warmth with a high of 82. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Forever Remodeling. Stress-free and high-quality remodeling. View their stunning transformations online at the number 4everremodeling.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Focusing on where you have the most influence, a common theme on this show, where you can have the most impact, local government, local institutions, your local representatives in state government, your local representatives at the federal government level, rather than sort of just posting on social media and opining about things national and international, where obviously you're certainly entitled to your view and to dialogue about things that you're interested in. But in terms of the impact you can you have more impact at your local school district or on the UN, on how the curriculum is being shaped in the Catholic school you send to which you send your kids, or the peace process in Eastern Europe. Pretty straightforward concept. To that end, I was recently made aware of the strategic plan that has been cobbled together at my alma mater, Bennett Academy, my high school alma mater, Bennett Academy in Lisle. Strategic plan 2025 to 2030. And, Bennett is a very good school, according to most metrics, the academic metrics, doing pretty well in number of sports too, including basketball. But had a little bit of a dust up a few years ago when the Benedictines abdicated, incredibly, rather than exercise the power they had over the school, when the school's volunteer board, advisory board really, decided to turn a blind eye to the principles upon which the school is based and the faith. And ignore the fact that a lacrosse coach had lied on her job application. And it was, gender politics. So they relented because you didn't want to face the ire of a handful of protesters out there on Maple Avenue making this about the sexuality of the lacrosse coach rather than her character, her integrity. And it seems to, I spoke to the parents group there several years back. I was invited to. It was pretty warmly received. This was several years ago, though. And everything we heard at the time of that lacrosse coach incident, everything I heard, suggested that, the school had been taken over by the staff. The Benedictines were not exercising the oversight they should have in terms of personnel and in terms of ensuring personnel were aligned with the faith that undergirds the institution and the expression of said faith in the way the institution is administered, in terms of what is communicated in the classroom. And it seems that slide continues. So all this talk about what Trump is doing about identitarian politics at the federal level and this agency and that dust up. Meanwhile, in your backyard in Lisle, for those who have some connection to Bennett Academy, just as an example, this is hardly the only one. My point is to use this as an illustration of something that is happening in these institutions where you live. You want to know why Illinois has become so moribund, why there is such a lack of, not just electoral competition, but intelligent discourse, institutions of enlightenment, conferring said. That I mentioned earlier in the program, what I disclosed this week, this Father Baspas over at St. Mary Church in Riverside, spending his Sunday homily on the day of Charlie Kirk's funeral service, implicitly attacking Charlie Kirk as a false prophet without naming him. Any parishioners have anything to say about that? Did you say anything about that? Bennett Academy's 2025 strategic plan, 2025 to 2030 vision, forward-looking. Identity and culture. Enrich our programs for nurturing the Catholic faith and Benedictine heritage. Well, that sounds good. Enhance our proactive plans to foster an accepting, respectful community grounded in the Catholic faith and Benedictine heritage in order to create a sense of belonging for all in the Bennett family. Oh, that sounds good. Okay. If they stopped there, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But alas, develop and articulate plans to increase racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic diversity among students, faculty, administration, and families, and live out that philosophy by being intentional in the admission process, the hiring process, and in financial assistance decisions. Oops. Oopsie. Is Joy Reid on the board of the advisory board of Bennett Academy now? She might as well be. Develop and articulate plans to increase racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic diversity among students, faculty, administration, and families, and live out the philosophy by being intentional in the admission process, the hiring process, and in financial assistance decisions. That's just a flowery way to say DEI. And as I have often said, if you operate an institution on merit, the diversity takes care of itself. Diversity doesn't need a steward, and certainly doesn't need some rawful nitwits on the advisory board of Bennett Academy or some cultural Marxist that somehow got into the faculty or the administration to provide that stewardship. Because if that's not true, then what is it you're saying? If we're not, what's the word, intentional in the admission process and the hiring process with increasing racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic diversity, then it won't happen because were mostly honky and will continue to be mostly honky because, if we're not intentional, because racial and ethnic and socioeconomic diversity, meaning non-honkies, can't compete with the honkies. Is that what you're saying? It is what you're saying. You would never say that's what you're saying, but it is. Black and brown and so on and so forth can't compete with the lily whites at Bennett. That's what Bennett says. That's what they say in their strategic plan, decoded by anybody who's paid any attention to this. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. As I've been saying for, I don't know, the 15 years I've been on the radio, are you surprised? Are you paying attention to what's happening in your school, government or private, where your kids go or went, where you went? Supporting that school, and by extension, this identity and culture, and by extension, a curriculum that advances that identity and culture? See, you can't have it both ways. You can't say we're going to enrich our programs for nurturing the Catholic faith and Benedictine heritage, and then say we're going to count by race and other identitarian characteristics. Those two things are mutually exclusive. Because enriching our programs for nurturing the Catholic faith and Benedictine heritage is colorblind, is regardless of sex, is merit-based. That's a statement of merit. And then you know, one bullet point down, you have a statement of anti-merit. An insulting, bigoted, dare I say, statement. A bigotry of low expectations expression, which is what that is. Develop and articulate plans to increase racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic diversity among students, faculty, administration, and families, and live out that. And families, articulate plans to increase diversity among families? How are you going to do that exactly? What, Bennett Academy is going to come into the home? So, students come with families, usually. They don't even know what they're saying. It doesn't even have to make sense because it's just their sentimental pablum. And this is one of the best schools by the numbers in the state. You know where this goes? It goes to things like other cultural institutions. Hey, check out the local museums, why don't you? Did you see this one? A African-American museum in Louisville. Roots 101, African-American Museum in Louisville. They have a little exhibition going on. And the exhibition is this. You come up to a black dude sitting on a chair in front of the assembled museum attendees, because this is broadcast, and you hold out your hands, and he puts chains on your wrists. If you're a honky, you hold out your hands, and he puts chains on your wrists, and he says, "How does that make you feel?" And then you offer your contrition for being a honky in front of the assembled. This will soon be part of, U.S. history and at Bennett Academy, I'm sure.
Welcome to America. Tell me what you're thinking.
Just so much.
Kleenexes, please.
I've always been interested in history and the history of black people. I took Afrocentric classes at U of L. My grandma lived at 2821 West Kentucky Street. I've read so many books, and now I belong to a church that's primarily African American, and I wouldn't be anywhere else.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Shriveled up, honky chick, consumed with her own sentimentality. If I lived in Louisville, I'd go over there, and when you do the, welcome to America and put the chains on my wrist, what are you thinking? I'm thinking, why don't you put the chains on your wrist? Because I'm no more of a slave than you are. I have no more nexus to slavery than you do, or being a slave owner than you do. So knock off your nonsense. By the way, this is not just about sort of like differences of opinion and, different perspectives of trying to get to the same place. We're not trying to get to the same place. Oh, and by the way, if you've taken notice, just in the last couple of weeks, as we've run through all morning, and as Eli Steele nicely articulated at his Substack, I mentioned that, the hidden root of leftist violence. This is the hidden root of leftist violence. This identitarianism. You think it's all innocent and without consequence? This is the poisonous orthodoxy that gives license to people who believe that violence is a legitimate means to political ends. So you want to do something about it at the root level? Well, then you better look at your mediating institutions, schools, churches. Ken in Plainfield.
Hey, Dan. As a fellow alumni of Bennett, and I have 9 siblings that also went through Bennett, I think one of them was in your class, I know the majority of us aren't contributing anymore just because of what they're doing over there. I mean, pretty much ever since the priests relinquished control, it's been kind of a crap show.
Yeah.
And I would think they would want, especially someone like you who has a voice more so than us, I would think they would want to please their alumni too, but obviously they don't care.
No, thanks for the call, Ken. No, I mean, all they care about is alumni who write checks. And as long as they have enough local, car dealers and successful Bennett alumni, as long as, they can just point to Porter Mosier and others, Frank Kaminsky, then they don't care. Because they haven't been made to care. I mean, just, somebody who's conservative, who's not just helping spread their beautiful lies, well, they'll just ignore me. Just ostracize. Oh, it's, just a guy ranting on the radio. Okay, fine. Whatever. It's your right. Go ahead. I mean, it's up to the parents and alumni to actually take some action. And when there was opportunity to take action, people who had the authority abdicated, as I mentioned, and that's on the Benedictines. That was a shameful episode. But you still have parents and alumni that can intercede. I'm happy to intercede with them. My one voice isn't going to do it. I know that. I have no, delusions of grandeur. But it's the same thing that happened at Loyola. And until you start having major donors say, we're done until you straighten up and fly right. Rob, Downers Grove.
Hey, Dan. Good morning. Happy Friday.
Thank you.
I think it's obvious what they're doing. Bennett is just trying to improve their athletic programs.
Well, yeah, I mean, but which is fine. I'm all for, taking an interest in your sports programs and winning state titles and sending kids downstate and having the full panoply of sports offerings too. Great. But, one doesn't have anything to do with the other. And ironically, sports is merit-based. And Bennett is a little bit of two minds in terms of whether they want the rest of the institution to be merit-based. Ron, Sycamore.
Hi, Dan. I live in Sycamore, and I went to the local school council meetings out here at the district. We have 250 teaching positions. 97% of them are white. And when I questioned that, they didn't give me an answer. Sycamore is a very insular community, and the school district is no different. My daughter graduated from Sycamore High School, and she said, Dad, I didn't have a black teacher until I was a senior in high school, which outraged me.
Well, but I don't care if I would have had all black teachers at Bennett. I mean, what does it matter? I mean,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It doesn't matter. That's exactly the point. Thanks for the call, Ron. It doesn't matter. And when I was there, I've probably said this before, I think we had in my graduating class 3 black students. Maybe it's 2, Mario McIntosh, Mimi Raoul. Anyway, and they were popular and great, and everybody got along too, and nobody was obsessed about race. And this is, oh God, I hate to admit it, this is 35 years ago, for goodness sakes. And now, 35 years later, we're at a better place. And you think the people who put a statement like this into your strategic plan are going to take you to a better place? Come on, man. Chris in Lockport.
Hi. When Charlie Kirk was killed, my first thought was we allowed this to happen by allowing people to be identitarians and to allow them to say and do what they do. And I'm personally not going to do that anymore. So when I hear people talking and when I hear them commenting, I'm not going to just roll my eyes anymore, and I'm going to say something because we allowed this poison to happen.
Good, Chris. Thank you. Jack, Northwest Indiana.
Hey, Dan. So I think principally this is a matter of marketing to your customer base, and that will be the western suburbs, because think of all the moms. How many times have you mentioned Naperville and the moms and the woke moms that they're marketing to those customers? You will not see this Mount Carmel, Brother Rice, any other more core Catholic high schools in Chicago. It'll be the opposite. So this is just a pure woke culture among your future students.
Thanks for the call, Jack. Well, institutions like the church or a Catholic school should be impervious to the local political culture. You have a foundation, you have a mission, execute it, regardless of the popularity or the naysayers. Or what is your institution? Or how can I believe you are who you say you are, that you believe the things you say you believe, when you demonstrate the opposite? Coming up at 8:08, we'll turn our attention to, this poor girl never had a chance. Violet Affleck also testified before the General Assembly, UN General Assembly this week, as did Trump. Completely different topic. Bjorn Lomborg at 8:08. It is now 8 o'clock on WIND AM 560.
He'll be arraigned next month. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News, but former FBI Director James Comey insists
I'm innocent. So let's have a trial and keep the faith.
Posting that on Instagram after Comey was indicted on charges of making a false statement to Congress and obstruction of a proceeding. Fox's Todd Pyro reports.
The case against him stems from his testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee back in September of 2020 about the FBI's investigation into 2016 Russian interference in the election.
I stand by what the testimony you summarized that I gave in May of 2017.
So your testimony is you've never authorized anyone to leak?
I'm not going to characterize Andy's testimony, but mine is the same today.
President Trump posted on Truth Social this morning that Comey's corrupt and told a very serious and far-reaching lie for which a very big price must be paid. Democrats call the indictment political and an attack on the rule of law. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will soon address the UN General Assembly, where more countries this week recognized a Palestinian state as Israel keeps waging war in Gaza.
The New York Post is reporting right now that to get to New York for this morning's address, Netanyahu's plane, the Wing of Zion, flew an unusually long route to avoid the airspaces of France and Spain, because those are international criminal court countries that could arrest Netanyahu if his plane had to make an emergency landing there.
Fox's Peter Ducey. We just got an inflation update showing a slight increase. What's called the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index rose 0.3% last month from July, and the annual rate ticked up to 2.7%. Some products could soon cost more. President Trump plans new tariffs on more imports next month.
50% on kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, 30% tariff on upholstered furniture, 25% tariff on imported heavy trucks, 100% tariff on some imported pharmaceuticals.
Fox Business Network's Cheryl Casoni. America's listening to Fox News.
WIND, Chicago.
Good morning. It is 62 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. The city of Chicago has approved a multi-million-dollar payout to settle dozens of civil rights violations by a former police sergeant. Fox's Sue Guzman has the story.
The Chicago City Council unanimously approving the $90 million settlement for nearly 200 civil rights violations involving a former police sergeant who framed people for drug crimes they didn't commit in one of the biggest police misconduct scandals in the city's history. Police Sergeant Ronald Watts and his unit planted drugs on suspects, falsified police reports, and falsely accused people of drug crimes unless he and others were paid off. City financial officials said it would have cost the city even more in mounting legal fees had the $94 million settlement not been reached. Chicago, led by Mayor Brandon Johnson, is facing a $1 billion shortfall in 2026. Sue Guzman, Fox News.
Illinois health officials are pushing back on new federal guidance saying that Tylenol usage in pregnancy does not cause autism. The Trump administration is claiming that there's a link between acetaminophen use during pregnancy and autism, but Republican State Representative Bill Howder, who's also a doctor, says that rollout is, quote, political and dangerous, noting that the announcement lacks new evidence and contradicts established medical consensus. And the Leo High School Boys Choir returned home following their fourth-place win on America's Got Talent yesterday. The young men are already looking to the future. Choir director LaDonna Hill has hopes that the choir story will one day be made into a movie, and at least one choir member says he plans to return to the AGT stage as a solo artist one day. News is a service of Air Right Heating and Cooling, offering AM 560 listeners $56 off any service, including inspections. Don't wait for a heat wave for that old air conditioner to break down. Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling today at air-rite.com. Again, that's air-rite.com. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes, but time now for the AM 560 Business Beat.
I'm Liz Clayman, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Boeing shares are up 0.5%. Turkish Airlines is ordering up to 225 planes from Boeing. Norwegian Air Shuttle is ordering 30. However, a strike by machinists at Boeing Defense in St. Louis has now been going on for 53 days. Reuters says Boeing is facing less economic pressure than it did during last year's walkout because the current strike impacts mostly military programs that are producing at low rates or are still in testing. The Trump administration is planning new tariffs October 1st. Among the new tariffs, 100% duties on imported drugs from companies that aren't in the process of making some medications in the U.S., a 25% tariff on heavy-duty trucks, and tariffs on some imported furniture. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jim Cosola, invested in you.
Larry Elder is not seeing any changes.
Aside from Doug Schoen, the Democrat pollster, and John Fetterman, I've not heard a major voice in the Democratic Party say, we got to stop referring to Trump and his followers as fascists, as Nazis, a tyrant, and a Hitler. We got to stop doing that.
The Larry Elder Show, weeknights at 8, right before Sean Hannity at 10 on AM 560. The Answer. Don't miss In Grace with Pastor Jim Scudder Jr., now heard on Sunday mornings at 7:30. Tune in and find hope as Jim Scudder explores God's Word and His world each Sunday morning right here on AM 560. The Answer.
Honey, what's for dinner?
Honestly, nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Because every time I need a pan, I have to unload half the kitchen first.
It's like Jenga, but with casserole dishes.
Exactly. And I always lose.
At Forever Remodeling, we create kitchens that fit your life, not the other way around. From smart storage to stunning finishes, start cooking in a kitchen built just for you. Visit foreverremodeling.com. That's the number 4, everremodeling.com.
If your cash is sitting in a savings account, it's at risk. Old school advice says save more, but today the strategy is broken. When inflation spikes, they print money or cut rates, your dollar shrinks. So do your savings. The solution? Own something real. Physical gold and silver. When the dollar drops, gold and silver prices rise. And with Noble Gold, owning gold is simple. Just visit noblegoldinvestments.com and chat with a specialist. The knowledge is free. The protection is priceless. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions.
The IRS finally caught up with Louie.
I hadn't paid my taxes in 8 years. I owed the IRS a lot of money.
Louie was in deep trouble.
We're going to take your house, put a lien on your bank account, garnish your pay. They don't care. They're going to take your paycheck.
Louie found out about Optima Tax Relief, the leading tax resolution firm. A-plus rated by the Better Business Bureau, they've resolved over $1 billion for their clients.
Optima Tax, they helped me. They calmed me down. They made me feel comfortable, and I trust them.
Louie has a lot to be thankful for.
I don't owe the IRS anymore, and I'm able to live a comfortable life, a lot better life. It was because of Optima Tax.
For tax help you can trust, call Optima now for a free consultation. Take it from Louie.
If you owe the IRS, don't go it alone. give Optima Tax a call. They can help you.
Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Allie Dwyer and her 3 sons lost their hero, Stephen. Serving our country in the United States Army was Stephen's calling, and flying helicopters was his passion. Stephen was killed in a Black Hawk helicopter crash over the Mediterranean Sea. Thanks to friends like you, Tunnel to Towers provided his family with a mortgage-free home, giving them security and hope in their darkest hours. Help more families like the Dwyers. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. That's T2T.org.
Life insurance. Why are you putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think you don't need it? There's lots of excuses for putting off life insurance. But if you weren't there, who would pay the mortgage and other bills? With Ethos, you could be covered in 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Ethos, fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at ethos.com/term. That's ethos.com/term.
At AlmostFreeTeeth.com, they're dedicated to making smiles great again. If you have medical PPO insurance, find out how you could save 90% off on average to get a beautiful dental implant-supported smile. Check if you qualify right now at AlmostFreeTeeth.com.
Checking traffic this Friday. The good news, rush hour traffic looks good. No major incidents, just some backups typical in the patterns. On the Edens this morning, it'll take you about 21 minutes inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose. Some backups on the Kennedys if you're inbound from Montrose to Belmont, about an 8-minute delay. The Stevenson looking okay, about a 20-minute delay if you're inbound between Harlem and Western. Inbound Eisenhower, you're tapping the brakes if you're between North Avenue and Tri-State Tollway, only about a 5-minute backup. About a 10-minute delay if you're outbound Ike between Tri-State Tollway and North Avenue. Trains are delayed up to 40 minutes on the Metro Milwaukee North Line, southbound at Western Avenue. The Bishop Ford, Dan Ryan, and DuSable Lakeshore looking good, no major issues there. And the Tri-State Tollway, northbound between Stevenson and Hinsdale Oasis, about a 5-minute backup there. I'm John Cruz. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now a check of your forecast from QC Kinetics and the National Weather Service.
Today will be sunny and very warm with a high of 82. Tonight will be clear with a low of 58. Tomorrow will be very warm with plenty of sun. A beautiful start to the weekend, reaching a high of 83. Sunday will bring sunshine and very warm conditions with a high of 82. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. And President Trump at the UN this week delivered perhaps the greatest reality check on behalf of Western civilization that's ever been delivered by an American president to the UN. Truly. I mean, in a very secular sense, talking about things like immigration policy and energy policy and saying things like this.
Climate change, it's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that. No more global warming, no more global cooling. All of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong. They were made by stupid people that have cost their countries fortunes and given those same countries no chance for success. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. And I'm really good at predicting things, you know. They actually said during the campaign they had a hat, the best-selling hat. Trump was right about everything. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything. And I'm telling you that if you don't get away from the green energy scam, your country is going to fail. And if you don't stop people that you've never seen before, that you have nothing in common with, your country is going to fail. I'm the president of the United States, but I worry about Europe.
Yeah, I don't know that he's been right about everything. I wouldn't go that far, but he's right about this. And I wish he would have added a line that Bjorn Lomborg our forthcoming guest, an argument that he makes all the time, which is you're enriching the rich at the expense of the poor with these policies. It's not that climate change doesn't occur naturally. Of course it does. The climate is changing. The globe, this mortal coil in which we live, is always changing. It's the policy response. And the policy response is to enrich yourselves, people in this room, and their circles of friends at the expense of your constituents. Something else Chris Wright said, the energy secretary this week, too, I thought was particularly notable in the sense of rejecting this aphorism, this political aphorism that is often bandied about.
The wind subsidies and solar subsidies are 33 years old, so it's about time for industries to walk on their own. We do have studies and dialogues going on right now with the offshore wind developers. No final decisions have been made on that. There are serious issues on both sides there. And I'll say as a lifelong energy guy, I've never been an all of the above energy person. I've always said I'm for affordable, reliable, secure energy that betters human lives. So if you do things to your energy system that make it more expensive and less reliable, I'm not for that.
Yeah, not all of the above to satisfy all camps. I'm for what makes sense. I'm for what achieves these objectives. Affordable, reliable, improves the quality of life for the people for whom I can improve the quality of life. And he's a former energy exec, of course, energy company exec. For more on this, pleased to be joined by the aforesaid Bjorn Lomborg, president of Copenhagen Consensus think tank, author of Best Things First. Bjorn, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Hey, Dan. Good to be here.
So President Trump may not exactly use the vernacular you would use, but he was directionally correct, as he often is.
Yeah. I mean, look, whatever you think of Trump's rhetoric, he's absolutely right in pointing out that green policies cost us a fortune and unfortunately delivers very little. And so when you have, look, global warming or climate change or whatever you want to call it is a real problem, but it's a problem. It's not the end of the world. And the way that we're trying to fix it costs us pretty much the world. And that's a bad deal. So we need to get better at this. And he's absolutely right to point to Europe. And he could also point at Canada, Australia, a few other rich countries who are just spending enormous sums and achieving almost nothing. Last year, the world spent more than $2 trillion on climate policies. And yet the impact is virtually unnoticeable. It's likely that we won't be able to measure the difference even by the end of this century. That's a terrible way to spend trillions of dollars.
Right. It's not just that it's having no positive impact. It's the opportunity cost of all those resources frivolously wasted.
Exactly. And one of the things that you also pointed out and that I wrote in my New York Post op-ed was really, look, the UN is meeting this week here in New York where they're talking about all the different problems of the world. Most people on the planet suffer from easily curable infectious diseases. They have lack of food. They have lack of good education. There are lots of problems in this world. And many of these things we could save and fix for billions of dollars. But instead, we're saying, oh, no, let's just focus on climate and spend trillions of dollars and not actually achieve anything. And that's really, really terrible. That's what you just pointed out, the opportunity cost, that we end up spending money really badly, so we forget to spend them well, much less money on actually fixing problems.
And again, just in terms of the balance sheet here, as you heard Energy Secretary Chris Wright talk about, 33 years of renewable energy subsidies, and where are we at?
Well, we're at a place where Europe has almost 3 times the cost of electricity as do the U.S. and even more compared to China. We have a situation where the more solar and wind you have in your energy system, not the cheaper electricity cost, but actually the higher electricity costs. So we only have good data for the world for up till 2023. But if you take the almost 70 countries that we have, if you plot them along the horizontal line of how much solar and wind are in their system, and then up the y-axis, how costly is it? It's not such that if you have lots of solar and wind, it's really cheap. It's really, really expensive. There are only expensive solutions out there. So all the cheap electricity solutions are down where you have very little solar and wind. All the expensive ones are high up. And that tells you something. That tells you that the world is not agreeing with this standard mantra, oh, solar and wind is incredibly cheap. That may be possibly true when the sun is shining and the wind is blowing, but when it's not, and remember, most people like their electricity 24/7, not just when the weather allows it. If you need energy 24/7, you need backup power for almost your entire energy system, and that ends up making the total energy system much, much costlier than had you just gone with fossil fuels. Now, eventually, I would love to see a world where we can do without the CO2 emissions, absolutely, but this world is not yet there. And so we really need to be careful. What we're trying to do is not only make Europe's energy prices go up, but we're also trying to force all the poor countries to do the same mistake. That is to what they call leapfrog from having no electricity to just having unreliable and very expensive electricity. And that's a terrible outcome.
So a day after Trump called climate change a con job, of course, here comes Chinese Communist dictator President Xi to make the statement, green and low carbon transition is the trend of our time. While some countries are acting against it, the international community should stay focused in the right direction, says a guy who is rolling out dozens and dozens of coal-fired plants, energy plants every year. Anyway, what's Xi doing there in your estimation?
Well, I mean, first of all, he is selling solar and wind. China produces almost all the solar and wind and electric cars in the world. So obviously he wants everyone else to be on board. Remember, Chinese solar companies probably have an overproduction of more than 50%, more likely 60 or 70%. They basically tried to fire a lot of people and they still have way overproduction quantity. So he wants to sell more of this stuff. Also, remember, China is a huge country. So yes, China builds a lot of solar and wind, and they don't all not work, as Trump pointed out. They do work, but China is still almost entirely a fossil fuel powered country. So they at the lowest. They had 7.5% of their energy from renewables, and now they're all the way up to almost 11%. So let's just remember, most of China is still coal-fired, and not surprisingly, that is what brought almost all of them out of poverty. And most of the rest of the world, so India and Africa and Latin America, they're not looking at Germany or UK and saying, gee, we'd love to have incredibly expensive power and deindustrialization. They look at China and say, we'd love to get lots of cheap energy and get rich. And you can't blame them.
Yeah, I mean, 4 or 5 centuries, China is going to be completely renewable energy based, I'm sure, at the pace they're going now. But the other thing about it, I mean, there's more cynical political play there too. Is not just China wants to enrich itself; it would rather keep the rest of the world dependent on China for their, their shiny objects, the solar and wind devices, while it stays strong based on fossil fuels. I mean, that's the whole point, is have these countries do to themselves what the Chinese Communist Party can't do to them directly, and that starts with America.
Oh, I'm sure they're very delighted that we are also intentionally undermining ourselves and making our industries less competitive, and hence, ceding even more space to the Chinese. So yes, that is also an added-on benefit. But I really think China is just, they found their great niche, and their niche is producing lots of green stuff. So obviously they want us all to want more of that. But unfortunately, since it's not cheaper, you actually have to get politicians to demand it.
And in terms of what Trump said, too, about, the predictions having almost always been wrong or off by, at least one standard deviation. I mean, that that is the case in terms of the climate modeling that we're supposed to spend trillions of dollars on the basis of.
So I think you have to distinguish between, so the serious science, which is actually what the UN climate panel has been telling us about, has been pretty correct. And they have basically been telling us, yeah, there's a problem, and this is something we should be looking into. But the science that you hear about, the one that makes the headlines in New York Times and everywhere else, are the things that they have been spectacularly wrong about, where they tell you, oh my God, all the coral reefs are gone, and there's
polar
an
bears
immense amount of heat waves or polar bears and all these things. And of course, remember, the Great Barrier Reef has never been better than it is in the 2020s. Yes, there are more heat waves, but there are many fewer cold waves, and actually more people don't die because of heat and cold. And of course, polar bears are at an all-time high. Again, none of this has anything to do with the fact that there's nothing true about the climate predictions,
right.
But it is that climate is just not the main factor in this. The reason why we have more polar bears is simply we've stopped shooting so many of them, which is actually, if you ask me, a good thing. We should, but we're still,
if you stop shooting,
polar bears.
if you stop shooting them, they're more likely to survive. Yeah, right.
Exactly, and there are 25,000 polar bears roughly in the world, and we still shoot 700 each year. If you worry about climate change, if you worry about the future of polar bears, maybe the first thing to do is not to change the entire engine of global prosperity for the last 200 years and rip it out and say, let's try something else. But maybe you just, I don't know, stop shooting them.
And so, I mean, that's an important distinction to make. So you have to look at sort of the science and the hyperbolized science or politicized science that is intended to advance this idea of signing on to net zero by 2050 versus modeling that is just trying to describe what is and prompt a conversation about what to do about what is.
Yeah, and look, all you hear is this very scary, all these scary stories, and they're obviously designed to say, if you think the end of the world is approaching, and remember, a lot of young people have been brought up to believe that climate change is the end of the world, and also a lot of adults believe this because you constantly hear about one terrible thing after another in the news. I understand that. And of course, it's intentional in the sense that makes you sign on to really, really expensive policies like net zero. But the reality is climate change is a problem. Climate economics, even the only guy to win the Nobel Prize in climate economics, estimate this will cost us by the end of the century 2 to 3% of GDP. Yeah, that's a real problem. It's not the end of the world. It's not anywhere near 100%. So it's a problem. But if you try to make policies that don't really fix all that much, that cost 5, 10, 20% of GDP to fix a 2 to 3% problem, that's a really bad deal. And unfortunately, that's the deal that we're being sold right now.
Bjorn Lomborg is president of the Copenhagen Consensus think tank. He's also the author of Best Things First. Bjorn Lomborg, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Great to talk to you.
You too, and Bjorn Lomborg joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. It's a bank that cares about your business and is invested in your success. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Hi, I'm Chris Johnson, CEO of Classic Cinemas and proud customer of Signature Bank. We are a local family-owned business that is known for free refills on all sizes of popcorn, soft drinks, and ices. With over 9,000 heated recliners in 16 locations, we marry the traditions of the past with today's state-of-the-art technology. Throw in a 30-minute guarantee and an after-movie mint, and you have the perfect night out. As we strive to make every guest our priority, Signature Bank does the same with their customers. The team at Signature Bank is interested in taking my company forward. They have all the resources and solutions of the big banks, but they customize their offerings to meet my business needs. The customer always comes first with Signature Bank.
Signature Bank helps local businesses succeed. Let Signature Bank turn your business vision into reality. Visit signaturebank.bank. Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
When the power goes out, life stops. Heat, AC, fridge, phones, all gone. But with a Generac home standby generator from True Power Generator Service, your home powers back on automatically, so you're never left in the dark. Book your consultation today at truepowergenerator.com. That's TRUpowergenerator.com. Plus, 560 listeners get a free 10-year extended warranty. Terms and conditions apply. Call for details. True Power Generator Service and Generac. It's not just a generator, it's a power move.
A large retail store just canceled a huge order, leaving MyPillow with a ton of extra MyPillows. But you know what? That's their loss and your gain. MyPillow is offering the Classic Collection for wholesale prices. Only $19.98 for a standard MyPillow. But it gets even better. For a limited time, they're going to offer the entire Classic Collection at wholesale prices. Get queen-size MyPillows for just $24.98. Upgrade to king-size for only $29.98. Get the body pillows for $39.98. And the multi-use MyPillows for only $12.98. So go to MyPillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY or call 800-489-0201 to take advantage of wholesale pricing and receive $100 in free digital gifts when your order is $75 or more. That's right. Get the standard MyPillow for only $19.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call 800-489-0201 and use promo code LIBERTY. That number again is 800-489-0201. Promo code LIBERTY.
If your cash is sitting in a savings account, it's at risk. Old school advice says save more, but today the strategy is broken. When inflation spikes, they print money or cut rates, your dollar shrinks. So do your savings. The solution? Own something real. Physical gold and silver. When the dollar drops, gold and silver prices rise. And with Noble Gold, owning gold is simple. Just visit noblegoldinvestments.com and chat with a specialist. The knowledge is free. The protection is priceless. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions.
AM 560.
The Answer.
Open mic! Open mic Friday! Call it now! Open mic Friday!
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. It is that time of the week, Open Mic Friday, where we take your calls with comments, compliments, concerns, criticisms, general crack pottery. We take it all. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line and text line. But we begin, as we do, with turnkey.pro founder David Kolsak. David?
Good morning, Dan.
Morning.
I want to talk today about the similarities between the JFK assassination and Charlie Kirk's. My presumption is that the investigations will both end in similar fashion, where we won't ever really know what happened, and few will believe the official investigation. Even though these two assassinations occurred in different eras, contexts, and circumstances, there are many parallels. Both were done outside in front of thousands of spectators, one in Dealey Plaza in Dallas, the other in a tent in front of students at Utah Valley. Both extremely public executions. The time of attack was 12:23 p.m. in Utah and 12:30 local time in Dallas, respectively. Both were taken to hospitals where they were pronounced dead later that afternoon. We see public footage at the hospital of the assassination in 1963, but no public footage at the hospital for Charlie Kirk. Both Kirk and JFK were said to be shot from an elevated position, one shot while speaking to a crowd, the other shot while riding in a motorcade. But we're both told that the assassinations were shot from, again, an elevated position. Both bullets are considered magic bullets. Both involve high-profile assassinations where questions about ballistics are part of the public debate. In each case, the official story is met with skepticism. Both feed into a broader conspiracy speculation about whether more than one shooter was involved. In short, the Kennedy magic bullet was an official theory that many found unbelievable. The Kirk magic bullet talk is more about people borrowing the phrase to express their doubt about what happened. Kirk's casket was transported aboard Air Force Two, accompanied by Vice President J.D. Vance and Charlie Kirk's widow. JFK's body was flown aboard Air Force One, accompanied by then President Lyndon Johnson, beside Jackie Kennedy. My point is that in both cases, people think something's off about the narratives being told from our government. Where's the bullet? A 30-06 shell would have taken his head off. Where's the blood splatter? Where's the entry and exit wound? Why would the shooter disassemble and reassemble the gun? Why did he change his clothes twice? Why no autopsy? Where's he buried? So many things unanswered. But we got our man. Believe them, we got our man. Both assassinations sparked immediate national mourning and political turbulence, and both will never be solved. What's interesting here is that 60-some-odd years after JFK was assassinated, you would think, with all the technological advances we've seen, that things would be different, but they're really not that much different. In 1963, Abraham Zapruder sold his film to Life magazine for $150,000. But the public did not see that motion film at that time. Instead, they were shown still frames. It was not until March of 1975 where the Zapruder film was shown publicly for the first time on Good Morning America. Today, we have an assassination that happened in front of like 3,000 people or something, and yet we only see a handful of videos taken by eyewitnesses. You would think that there would be at least 100 videos captured by casual spectators at that event and shared publicly, yet we only have a few. In both cases, the public is being shown a select few video recordings, and most of them are low quality. In both cases, you've got conflicting or incomplete evidence. You've got two magic bullets. In both cases, you've got a shroud of government secrecy and a rush to judgment. In JFK's instance, the assassin in custody was killed. In this case, it wouldn't surprise anybody if the person in custody didn't make it to trial. For JFK, within hours, authorities pointed to Oswald, but the rush to judgment made people doubt whether a real investigation had been done, and they still do today, even more so. With Kirk, within 33 hours, police had named Tyler Robinson as the sole shooter. That fast conclusion before complete forensic analysis fuels speculation that the case is being wrapped up too neatly. So forget about the forensics, forget about the ballistics and the crime scene investigation. The plaza where Kirk was shot has been paved over, and forget that there are so many details that contradict each other, not to mention the many eyewitness accounts that were contrary to the official description of the shooter. Americans already distrust the government and mainstream media. Social media spreads rumors instantly, and viral clips or unverified leaks compete with official channels. That makes alternative narratives gain traction. So forgive me for being skeptical for seeing this movie before it's taken over 60 years to get only some of the JFK files released to the public. That means, Dan, you and I will have to wait until we're over 110 to get some answers. So don't hold your breath. Just accept what they say as the truth. It'll be easier, I guess.
So Kash Patel is in on this then?
I'm not saying anybody's in on anything. I'm just saying none of this stuff makes any sense.
Well, if none of it makes any sense and you don't believe the official story, then somebody has to be lying. So is Kash Patel lying?
Yeah, probably.
And the entire Trump administration power structure, the top of that power structure, J.D. Vance, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, they're all in on this.
I don't know who's in on what, Dan, but all I know is it doesn't make any sense. And none of the ballistics, I mean, no autopsy? Come on. I mean, you have to admit a 30-06 would have done a lot more damage than they say it did, and that his body was the man of steel and it just stopped the bullet. I mean, again, I raised these questions last week, and it was like, thanks, David, I guess. But, I mean, questioning the narrative is kind of the thing that I do, and I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
You don't, though.
No, I do. I ask legitimate questions based on the evidence, and I also accept that some things are true based on the evidence. This everything you've ever been told is a lie, and there's a conspiracy on the menu when I order lunch. That's just as destructive as girls can become boys. Don't believe anything.
Really?
Nothing
is a bridge too far, huh?
Nothing.
It's a bridge too far to ask questions?
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Look at the ballistics.
That's not what I said.
The ballistics alone.
That's not what I said. You're misstating what I said because you need to. I understand. That's not what I said.
Really?
I said
that's as condescending as you can get, man.
I said that. No, I said that everything you've been told is a lie. That's basically your resting position, including on this. And I don't think so. And neither do a lot. And the other thing,
it'll be easier for you to just accept it. And that's what I just said. Accept it. You're never going to find out the truth. So just accept it, just like everything else.
Okay. All right. Thanks, David. Seth Dillon made this point over at the Babylon Bee this week. Everything you've ever been told is a lie, is in itself a lie. It's designed to detach young people, in particular, from history and reality, disorienting them to the point where they lose the ability to tell right from wrong, good from evil. From there, you can tell them anything. It's Gnosticism, is what it is. And this is, David had his say, I'm going to have my say. I'm happy to let David have his say and disagree, and he can call me condescending or whatever. I don't care. I'm asking questions because he necessarily implicating people as part of a conspiracy where he doesn't really say that anybody is lying except Kash Patel probably is. And he doesn't want to go so far as to say Trump, J.D. Vance, Pam Bondi, everybody else is lying too. They're in on this conspiracy to prevent the American people from getting the real truth. It's this idea that there's not individual accountability. They're just these malevolent forces. That's what Gnosticism is. There's a good piece on this, actually, in relation to Candace Owens in the Wall Street Journal. Gnosticism is the idea that holds the material world as evil and that a special knowledge lifts us out of its corruptions into redemptions. Salvation under this theory requires neither faith nor action, only the recognition that you're being lied to and your soul belongs elsewhere. Modern conspiracy culture operates on similar principles. Like ancient Gnostics, today's online quote-unquote truth seekers believe malevolent forces control the visible world. Mainstream institutions, media, and government aren't imperfect human constructs, but tools of a cosmic deception. Modern Gnostics believe in what is deliberately hidden. Watch this video, listen to this podcast, read this thread, and you'll be awakened to the secret truths that ordinary people can't see. It doesn't hurt that many offerings are behind a paywall, writes Josh Appel, who is a policy analyst at the Manhattan Institute, this piece about Gnosticism. This isn't healthy political discourse. It's spiritual pathology masquerading as analysis. The appeal is obvious. Gnosticism offers a flattering explanation for life's difficulties. Your problems aren't the results of bad decisions, random misfortune, or complex social forces. They're the fault of shadowy puppet masters. Most seductively, you don't need to do anything difficult to overcome them. You only need to know the right secrets. Like the ancient Gnostics, modern conspiracists view contradiction as confirmation. When authorities debunk their theories, it's proof the conspiracy goes deeper. When friends and family express concern, they're either deceived or complicit. The theory is unfalsifiable. And that's what you get when I'm just asking questions. Not all questions, not all interrogatories are of the same quality. Okay. For our Open Mic Friday, let's begin with Glenn in Orlando.
Yeah, good morning, Dan. I want to address the issue going on at the ICE facility in Broadview. I'm reading some things that this evening there's going to be another chaos event, and I'm calling on the mayor of Broadview and the chief of police to get involved and protect the property and protect the inhabitants. That is your sworn responsibility. You cannot sit there while chaos is going on. You have a responsibility to the community of Broadview. You were elected to uphold the law, protect the building, protect the inhabitants, and quit being passive.
Thanks for the call, Glenn. Tom in Palos Heights.
Good morning, Dan. I just want to comment on that talk show you had a few days ago concerning a Lifetime Achievement Award that the Senator Durbin is going to be receiving. I believe it's November the 3rd. I didn't hear it, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands that the person that's giving him the award is Senator Dick Durbin, a guy that has promoted the abortions, well, since the time that he's been a senator, I guess. My wife used to get out on every time she could, out on the street, telling people, please don't get abortions. You can go and get the baby adopted. Her and a bunch of women, thank God for these women, they kept a lot of babies from being aborted, but there's still a lot doing it. I just want to comment on it that remember when you go to church, you're making out that envelope, where is it all going? And what's happening here? That's the only comment I make. Dave, Dan.
Thanks for the call, Tom. Appreciate it. Yeah, and it's going to get worse in Illinois. Crane's Chicago Business, the anti-business business magazine, also anti-life, apparently. This headline, Wisconsin abortion pause prompts Illinois to prepare for influx. Illinois to prepare. Illinois providers said they're preparing for a surge of abortion seekers from another neighboring state following Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin's decision to pause abortion services next week. A defund provision in the latest federal budget reconciliation law would exclude Planned Parenthood facilities and other health centers that provide abortions from receiving federal Medicaid reimbursements. Good. And the argument is, federal dollars don't pay for abortions. Money is fungible. Yeah, they do. And this is why this was one of the better provisions in the big, beautiful bill. Bracing for an influx. We're bracing. What are you talking about, bracing? This is one of our cottage industries that Governor J.B. Pritzker touts all the time. Promotes abortion tourism to Illinois. That's not ghoulish. Owen in Willowbrook.
Hi, Dan. I find it real ironic that Patrick Fitzgerald will be defending Comey. Fitzgerald's the godfather of Comey's son, and Fitzgerald was part of that Comey, Mueller, what I like to call a cabal that failed to investigate Resco with Obama and all the dealings while he went after, Blagojevich.
Well, he also, Owen, thanks for bringing that up. He also went after Scooty. They were also in cahoots together going after Scooter Libby for the unmasking of Valerie Plame when they knew it wasn't Scooter Libby who did it. Both of them.
Correct. And then after Resco, after Fitzgerald retired from the DOJ, he went to work for a law firm that was a heavy donator to Obama. And I think he became a senior partner right after that. So it's fitting that a guy like Fitzgerald would defend Comey.
Thanks for the call, Owen. Mm-hmm. Robin in Tony, Alabama.
Hey, Dan. Thank you. I was listening to your discussion with Richard Epstein, and he was talking about the fallout if the Comey indictment is, followed through. And you were talking about the process. We absolutely have to follow the process. There needs to be some kind of accountability. Would I love to see a perp walk? I'd love to see from Hillary on down. But that's the emotional side. So what is fair and legal, we need to do. And they're going to spin it regardless.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they do. And they do that better than anyone else. So you know what? If we've got enough, then let's proceed. That's what I believe.
I agree with you, Robin. Thanks for the call. Rich, Indian Head Park.
Hey, good morning, Dan. How you doing this morning?
Good, thank you.
What I wanted to say, now that Comey is indicted, when, if any, is a trial going to actually take place?
Well, he's arraigned on October 9th, and then they'll set a trial date. Or at least
Okay.
a stand.
Is it going to be a year, 2 years? How long are they going to drag this out?
It's hard to say, but I don't think it will be multiple years. I think you'll want a relatively short court date, and then it depends on how long the discovery process is, and so on and so forth. So, and what motions are made. We'll see, but we at least know that he's surrendering today, and we've got an October 9th arraignment date, and it goes from there.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Dan. Have a good day.
Thanks, Rich. Kevin, Austin, Texas.
Dan, thanks for my call. Yeah, I was on the soupage thing. He was actually fraternally corrected by 7 of his brother bishops, and that doesn't happen too often. So I'm curious if you can go a little bit more in depth, what do you think the impact of that will be on soupage?
Zero. You think he doesn't know that there are bishops like Pat Brocky that disagree with him, come from a completely different understanding of the faith and the role of a faith leader, like a bishop or a cardinal. Right. He knows. He doesn't care.
Right.
He's a politician in a robe, is soupage.
Right. One of the comments that I love from one of the other bishops are talking about, he may have the smell of the sheep on him, but it's the sheep that are on the left side of the pen. So.
Thanks for the call, Kevin. Well, the other thing, too, is, Supich, his statement in defense of conferring this Lifetime Achievement Award on Durbin, as I mentioned earlier this week, it was Kamala-esque. Basically attacked Catholics who believe in the enforcement of immigration law. As somehow that's inconsistent with Catholic social teaching, which, of course, it's not. The same way that Kamala, I couldn't pick Mayor Pete because it was too big of a risk, because the American people are bigots, not because I am. We're conferring this award is in controversy to Dick Durbin because, so many Catholics who believe in the enforcement of immigration law are bigots. And, but we're not, me and Durbin, we're not. That was implicit in the statement he made. How else can you interpret that when, hey, don't look at what Durbin has done to promote the killing of unborn children from conception to post-birth. Don't look at his promotion of radical gender ideology. No, don't look at all of his, heresies. Just look at this narrow instance where he is, been a friend to the immigrant. Being a friend to the immigrant is being pro-open borders? No, actually, it's not, is it? Safe borders, or excuse me, secure borders save lives, as Tom Homan is wont to say, but that's what the evidence says. As I said earlier in the week, perhaps Supich would like to opine on the tens of thousands of unaccompanied minors who disappeared into this country because the borders were open, the sponsors of unaccompanied minors were unvetted, and now you have the Trump administration trying to identify where all of these kids are. And they've already identified 27 who are dead. They've made 400 arrests of sponsors of unaccompanied minors because they frauded the sponsorship program, because they shouldn't be sponsors of unaccompanied minors because they're bad people, traffickers and predators and whatnot. Friend to the immigrant community. No, you're not. Lawlessness is a friend to no one, including the migrant community. And that's both what Durbin and Supich promote. Jordan Antioch.
Good morning, Dan. Just real quick on the Charlie thing, because that 2 weeks in a row, the guy just drives me nuts. And I respect his opinion and his thoughts, but sometimes it's Occam's razor. One shot, one bullet, one suspect, DNA, one rifle, multiple confessions, multiple evidence of confessions, and the carving. I mean, sometimes it's Occam's. Would I like to see an autopsy? I'd like to see what kind of bullet was used to put one hole. But, people talk about the deflection, and I kind of bought into that. But then when you realize what you would have to wear to deflect the 30-06 round, I have body armor, and there's no way he was wearing that. So it's just, anyways, Occam's razor sometimes is just what it is. But to the larger point, we just lost Bodie Baucham. Yeah. Charlie Kirk was shot. And within the last 6 months, we lost John MacArthur. Okay, so we lost two great theologians that have been doing our work for us in the public sector, in the public arena. We've conceded gay marriage. We've conceded our children to be taught by these people in our schools, largely, not wholly. We've conceded our churches to fly the rainbow only once, and that's during June, which is a complete defamation of the covenant between Noah and between God and Noah. How long are we going to sit back on our hands and wait for somebody to do something? If Charlie Kirk and these guys going, this is a call, get off your, I hope it don't get bleed, get off your ass and start defending your faith, because there's only one more thing they have to take right now, and that's your faith. And they're canning that and squashing that and changing that, and as quote unquote conservative Christians, we are sitting and allowing it. What are you actually going to stand up for if it's not your faith and the gospel and the teachings of Jesus? So I would just say that everybody this weekend, if you haven't, go get your Bible and start actually putting these things to the test with the actual Word of God. And if you don't have the guts to stand up and actually defend God's Word and your faith, I don't know what else you have to stand for. Thanks, and have a nice weekend.
Thanks, Jordan. Be careful about those passages in the Bible that have been flagged by the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, though, of course. Regarding the questions, I'm just asking questions. That's fine. You can ask your questions, and you can insinuate your conspiracies, and stuff will get answered. I mean, there is, only so much that can be tracked down and distributed widely to the public so fast. I guess it starts with whether or not you believe, like I said, that you have officials in positions of authorities that are acting in good faith, or you don't. And I believe that Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and J.D. Vance and President Trump are acting in good faith. That's what I believe. I'm talking specifically about the Charlie Kirk assassination, but generally as well. And if you don't believe that, then I guess, sure, that's when conspiracy enters so that you can fill the gaps. It's not persuasive. For example, I mean, one of the suppositions that was put forward by conspiracy theorists was the transponder. Transponder on the flight was turned off after departing from an airport near the assassination site in Utah. And Kash Patel addressed that After interviews with the pilot and consultation with the FAA, we determined the transponder was not turned off. Incomplete flight data in rural areas caused the entire gap. Caused the apparent gap, I should say. Incomplete flight data in rural areas caused the apparent gap in terms of the transponder and the location of the flight. I mean, you say, okay, well, that's a lie. He's lying. Okay. Well, as soon as you come up with some sort of unified theory of what actually happened, that provides some direction in terms of the answers to the questions you pose, everybody's happy to hear you out. Happy to hear competing theories. That everything is a lie is not compelling. It is intellectually lazy. Kyle in Phoenix, Arizona.
Hi, morning, Dan. First-time caller. While I appreciate Frank's Tuesday history lessons, I do miss his impressions.
Yes, yes, me too.
Specifically, I was Jim Edgar's chief of staff. But
nobody does a Kurt Dillard like Frank from Ellington Heights. Yes.
No. But no, I was going to discuss the exact same topic. Everybody likes to listen to a conspiracy theory because it's fun. But, I listened to Candace's most recent episode, I think on Wednesday, I couldn't make it past the first 7 minutes because her theory was, well, there was no confession. The dad just turned him over. So how could you arrest somebody with no evidence? And I'm like, you purport to be some expert in the legal field, which I unfortunately I'm an attorney, but, you purport to know all this stuff with all your litigation with, the French president's wife. And then you say something like that, where it's like, well, what about all the other evidence that actually points to the facts that, lead to a arrest? And these conspiracy theories, that's the same issue. Like, you can just build up some sort of narrative and say, well, somebody else go figure it out. Well, what's your evidence for the conspiracy theory?
Yeah, the Candace stuff, I've seen some of it. It is completely off the rails.
It's wild.
Completely off the rails. Indefensible.
And same with Tucker. They're kind of all in the same area where I'm just like, do you want to actually, are we going to be independent journalists and actually put out facts, or are we just going to make stuff up essentially?
Yeah, well,
and have other people just find it out.
Yeah. Thanks for the call. I mean, it's the Gnosticism that I was referencing a bit earlier with respect to that op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, which is a good one. I always love a good limerick. Joe from Arlington Heights. I assume this is the Joe who is the poet laureate of Chicago's Morning Answer.
I'm the same, although for a limerick, it's a pretty weak form of prose. This is called a limerick, Jim Comey. My name is Jim Comey, and deep states best Comey. I lie and I lie, and then I deny. Once in prison, I won't be lonely.
All right, good. That's not bad. Thanks, Joe. I know you're more oriented towards high-minded prose, but it's good. I like that. Will and Skokie.
Good morning. The whole thing with that, the affiliates are rebelling against the major corporate suppliers of content. That's why so many of these large medias like, Disney and ABC and CBS, they're moving more towards streaming. Because if you stream or if you're cable, you don't need an FCC license. So they're trying to get around the affiliates by streaming their content. You notice now that they have things that stream, and then like a year later, they're on broadcast TV. They're trying to get away from broadcast, and they're trying to get around the affiliates who, are middle America usually and don't want this claptrap, going on their air.
Thanks for the call, Will. Ron, Southside.
Hey, Dan, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate when you have Robert Woodson Sr. on.
Yeah,
I just have to. Absolutely. But Arnie Duncan said yesterday, in order to deal with the shooting, we have to deal with the shooters. But that's what the police are for, and that's what the courts are for. Okay? That's simple. You're not getting any more government money. The city is broke. Trump is not sending any more money. And as you said, Dan, some of these programs are effective. But I hope he's doing a good background check. doesn't have any criminals like the guy was standing up there with Pritzker. What I like to see is private donors. They can contribute because they'll have a better eye as far as looking for results. But as far as public money, no, you're not getting anything. And don't come to us saying, hey, you got to deal with the shooters. That's what jails are for. Have a good day.
Thanks for the call, Ron. Eduardo, Tampa Bay.
Yeah, good morning. And I was going to comment about the new fire stadium they're going to have in the South Loop. At least here in Tampa, we're going to be playing the U.S. and the Uruguay. It's going to feel a lot more safer than walking in the South Loop, I'm afraid to say.
Thanks for the call, Eduardo. Marvin in Burlington, Wisconsin.
Yes, as a golf fan, I know you are too. I just want to know what your predictions are for the Ryder Cup. And maybe you could expand on your thoughts of the pairings.
My thoughts on what now?
The pairings.
Oh, the pairings. Thanks for the call, Mark. I have not. I know the Ryder Cup kicks off today. I have not delved deep into the pairings, but I like the home field advantage, so to speak. I like the team that Keegan Bradley put together on Bethpage Black, and I think the Americans take the cup. I do. Tim, I-355.
How are we doing? I just wanted to make a call, kind of piggybacking on a comment about just people standing up for their faith. I don't know if you caught the story about Matt Shaw, the Cubs rookie third baseman.
Oh, yeah.
This week. Yeah, he was asked about, his decision to go to the Charlie Kirk Memorial in lieu of playing. And I thought he did an excellent job of just, calmly, letting people know, like, hey, my faith in God is the most important thing. That's the only reason I'm even standing in front of you folks having this conversation.
Yeah.
And that was his connection with Charlie Kirk, who he actually knew personally.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, for such a young guy, I'm not sure, he's a rookie, probably about 22 years old. Like, I just thought that was an excellent display of character, especially in these crazy times.
Thanks for the call, Tim. It was exactly that with respect to Matt Shaw. Very impressive young guy, and almost enough to make me root for the Cubs in the playoffs. Almost. Chuck, to close it out quickly, Chuck.
Hey, Chuck, thank you very much for mentioning the high school garage band, Cash Patel. I was supposed to tell you last week I couldn't get through that Red Bull was coming to Lake Geneva. They were going to be doing backflips. They were going to have a bunch of...
Thanks, Chuck. It's now 9 o'clock, AM 560 WIND.
Israel's prime minister speaks out at the UN. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. After many delegates from around the